Chapter 270 Azure Yuan Treasure Pot. Senior, taking what others cherish is not the behavior of a gentleman. Chen Mobai had more experience, so he spoke rather tactfully. Ming Yihua, who was about to retort, held back when he saw Chen Mobai speak up. Young brothers, I am about to participate in the Millennium Celebration of Chicheng Cave Heaven. At that time, I will be fighting against Foundation Establishment cultivators from other Dao Academy. If I have this Xuan Yang Cauldron, it can bring glory to our Wuki Dao Academy. If you give it to me, it will be a contribution to the Dao Academy. These words made Chen Mobai sneer. Senior, it's better to have some self-respect. Ming Yihua spoke sarcastically, and the squinting boy's eyes flashed with embarrassment and anger. Chen Mobai ignored him and left the student council. What a pity, I haven't gotten my artifact fragment yet. Maybe this guy will open the Xuan Yang Cauldron soon. After leaving the small villa, Ming Yihua shook his head helplessly. You can also contribute 800,000 merits to get your hands on that sealed artifact orb. Forget it, it's my fate if I get it and my luck if I lose it. Without the Xuan Yang Cauldron, I might be able to get a better magic weapon. Let's just leave it at that. Ming Yihua was unwilling to do so many good deeds, nor was he willing to do favors for the student council members. That was just his personality. Chen Mobai also knew this, and the two of them browsed the stalls in the square again. Using his black-rimmed glasses as cover, he used his insightful eyes to examine all the sealed artifact spheres, memorizing the outlines and details he could make out. I plan to wait until tonight when I have the chance to check the information on the treasure map again, and see if I can find a third-tier magic weapon. It was noon soon, and the two met up with Mi Yudao and found a place to sit down. The person you encountered should be Yuan Jinjun. He is the most tasteless person in the student council, but he has amazing talent in cultivation and is one of the few Foundation Establishment experts in the academy. What level is this expert at? Chen Mobai expressed serious doubts about the quality of the experts from the immortal sect. 4th level of Foundation Establishment. Those who can cultivate to this level before graduation are already among the very best. Although Mi Yudao expressed disdain for Yuan Jinjun, he still admired his cultivation level. Foundation Establishment Level 4. Who is the highest-ranking student in the Dao Academy? After hearing this, Chen Mobai understood and remained silent, but Ming Yihua, who was standing to the side, asked with interest. If we don't count those who applied for delayed graduation, the one with the highest cultivation level is naturally Zhuo Qiashi, the president of the student council, who is at the 7th level of Foundation Establishment. As he said this, Mi Yudao's face was full of anticipation. 7th level of Foundation Establishment. What grade is he? If he hasn't graduated yet, wouldn't he be under 30 years old? At the Dance Weapon Academy, most new students are around 20 years old when they enroll. To reach the 7th level of Foundation Establishment before graduation after 10 years of university life demonstrates terrifying talent. President Zhuoqiu is a 10th grade student. He was already at the 2nd level of Foundation Establishment when he enrolled. In other words, during his 10 years at the Dao Academy, he broke through 5 realms, averaging 1 minor realm every 2 years. It's just so-so, not as good as Zhongli Tianyu. Chen Mobai thought this to himself, but Ming Yihua was amazed when he heard it. Is this president also cultivating the nascent soul stage? That's natural. If it weren't for cultivating the Cantong Qi and having the Cantong Qi materials prepared in advance, who could cultivate so quickly? Mi Yudao nodded. But even so, Zhuo Qiashi's ability to cultivate to the 7th level of Foundation Establishment before graduation made him the most talented person in the Dance Weapon Academy in the last 30 years. What realm is Zhongli Tianyu at now? Chen Mobai suddenly asked a question. He had always had a strange sense of anticipation for this legendary figure from the class of 2012, who was rarely seen. However, apart from showing up when he enrolled, this person has only been known by name and never seen in person. All I heard was the shocking news that he broke through a realm in a year. Judging from the last time he turned earth into steel, He should be at the 4th level of foundation establishment. Mi Yudao dared not make a definitive statement and was very cautious in his choice of words. The reason why the class of 2012 was valued by most of the senior students of the Dance and Weapon Academy was because of the existence of Zhang Lixianyu, a genius who transcended the norm. He is the next Zuo Qiashi. Is there only one person at the 7th level of foundation establishment in the entire Dao Academy? Chen Mobai asked again. After 2 battles, he realized that only those in the late foundation establishment stage could pose a threat to him now. There are 2 more senior students who delayed their graduation, but they haven't been seen for several years. Although Mi Yudao's cultivation level was not high, he was very familiar with the structure of foundation establishment cultivators in the Dao Academy. Through question and answer, he let Chen Mobai know the approximate composition of the current personnel in Chicheng Mountain. There are about 600 or 700 students in total, including those from all 10 grades who have applied to postpone graduation. Of these, foundation building and chi refining are each half and half. At our Dance Weapon Academy, the average time to reach foundation establishment is in the middle of the 7th grade, and I just happen to be right on the average line. You two, one a 4th-year foundation establishment student and the other a 5th-year foundation establishment student, have far surpassed the average. Even within the Myriad Treasures Cave, you are geniuses. As for those like Zuo Qiashi and Zhangli Tianyu who had already established their foundations upon entering the academy, we generally refer to them as monsters. Most of the senior students who delayed their graduation became teaching assistants. A small number of them spent their days in seclusion in this Wanbao cave, waiting to complete the 9th level of foundation establishment and exchange their accumulated credits for a fire element golden core from the Dao Academy, so they rarely came out on weekdays. After finishing his speech, Mi Yudao was filled with emotion, for this was also his life from now on. Although he has successfully established his foundation and can be considered a hero in his hometown, the best opportunity to form his core is still within the Dao Academy. Fire Element Golden Elixir is a unique 4th-tier elixir from the Alchemy Department of the Dance Weapon Academy. It can increase the success rate of golden elixir formation by 10% for foundation establishment cultivators who practice fire attribute techniques. If a foundation establishment cultivator with an attribute other than fire takes this pill, its effectiveness will be reduced by half. Although Mi Yudao is not of the fire attribute, as long as he can exchange for it, he can find cultivators from Bushan Dao Academy and Jumeng Dao Academy to exchange for a golden core of earth element that suits him. As for the best sacred medicine for forming the golden core, the golden liquid jade rejuvenation pill, only the immortal sect can produce it. Therefore, the top geniuses with connections in the 4 major academies would try to join the 3 major halls of the immortal sect after graduation, hoping to serve the country or participate in wars to accumulate spiritual items and pills that could assist in the formation of the core. I heard that Senior Zuokyu will be going to work for the Law Enforcement Bureau after graduation. Mi Yudao then shared another piece of gossip he had heard. Chen Mobai was not interested in this. He asked for the names of the other 2 foundation establishment level 7 students who had delayed their graduation. In other words, currently within the academy, aside from the teachers, there are only 3 students who need to be closely monitored. After memorizing the names of Zuo Qiashi and the other 2 foundation establishment stage 7 cultivators, Chen Mobai thought to himself, "Here we go." Just as they were chatting, the long-awaited main event finally arrived. On the balcony of the 3-story building housing the student council, a tall, capable woman with short hair tied in a ponytail and wearing a white shirt and black suit trousers walked out. She is Hua Zijing, who is considered the second-in-command of the student council. Zuo Qiashi has rarely appeared in public this year. It is estimated that she will take over as president after he graduates. Mi Yudao, the know-it-all, immediately introduced himself. Chen Mobai glanced at Hua Zijing, a very distinctive beauty, though her clothing was a bit conservative, though it was possible that she did so on purpose. Behind her were two people Chen Mobai recognized. It was Lu Tianxuan and Yuan Jinjun, both of whom were members of the student council. Among them, Yuan Jinjun is holding a magical artifact ball, which should be the one that will be opened today. Chen Mobai used his insightful eyes to look inside, and found that it was a bottle-shaped magical artifact. Hua Zijing took out a fragment of a weapon, and without any further words, directly activated the power of the fire element divine light. The crimson light fell into the white jade ball like a bolt of lightning, instantly turning the seal and the spiritual liquid into nothingness, revealing the true nature of the sealed magical artifact inside. This is a bronze pot with an empty spout and a slender handle resembling a long snake. Its shape is quite nice. But Chen Mobai shook his head slightly after reading it. This fluctuation of spiritual energy suggests that it is merely a low-grade second-tier magic artifact. However, at this moment, Chen Mobai noticed that the expressions of several Foundation establishment cultivators around him were a little strange, and he was quite shocked. It's actually the Azure Yuan treasure pot. Miyudao looked at the bronze pot in Hua Zijing's hand with envy. At this moment, many students from the Taoist Academy who learned the name of the bronze pot began to exclaim in surprise, causing an uproar. What is a King Yuanbao pot? Chen Mobai didn't understand why this second-tier low-grade magic weapon had caused such a huge sensation and reaction. This is one of the few storage magic tools in the immortal sect. Although it is only a second-grade low-level magic tool, in the eyes of some people, its value is almost comparable to that of a third-grade magic tool. As a top student in the weapon crafting department, Ming Yihua obviously knew the origin of the Azure Yuan treasure pot and immediately explained it to Chen Mobai. Oh, it's just a storage bag. Although that's what he was thinking, Chen Mobai still cooperated by showing a shocked expression after hearing it. In the Heavenly River realm, this is the most basic requirement for Foundation establishment cultivators. In the near future, if the Void Stone Vein in Lonely Soul Ridge is mined, it is estimated that every Qi refining cultivator in the Divine Wood sect will be able to obtain one. Thinking of this, Chen Mobai concealed the storage bag sewn into his wide sleeves. Hua Zijing was overjoyed to have obtained the Azure Yuan treasure pot. She held the bronze pot in her snow-white palm and showed it to the 67 Foundation establishment cultivators who had gathered in the square. Spurred by this, the students who had originally planned to wait took out the artifact fragments they had prepared for a long time and opened the artifact ball they had long admired on the stall. In an instant, the divine light of fire flashed and arrived one after another, as if a very dazzling firework display had been set off in this underground cave. Seeing this scene, Chen Mobai suddenly had a feeling. Could Hua Zijing be a plant? The purpose was to provoke these guys to open their artifact spheres and consume a batch of artifact spheres that had been sealed for nearly 100 years. The more he thought about it, the more sense it made, but Chen Mobai didn't make a fuss about it. He quietly watched the rising and falling divine firelight. In the blink of an eye, 13 artifact-containing orbs were activated. Amidst the flashing light of the second-tier magic artifacts, some people were overjoyed, while others looked regretful. One cut to heaven, one cut to hell. No wonder it's called high-end jade gambling. After the Azure Yuan treasure pot was opened, 19 artifact fragments were used up in this square in a whole afternoon. The two best artifacts were top-tier second-order items, a flowing light blade and a red and black robe. Among these, the black robe with red patterns is the school uniform of the Wuki Dao Academy, and it is also one of the ancient ceremonial robes that have been passed down. Each of the 4 major academies has its own unique attire. Dance costume, red and black robe. Kunpeng flying fish suit. The robe made of colorful clouds to mend the sky. Jumeng the immortal in his green robe. Wearing any of these items would attract envious glances from the immortal sects. After Chen Mobai completes his foundation building, he can also apply for one. However, the academy only issued first-tier items, and since everyone here was from the Dance Weapon Academy, it didn't give him any sense of superiority, so he didn't bother to collect them. However, this red and black robe, which was the only weapon to be produced, had been carefully woven and refined by a weapon refiner, and was already at the top level of the second tier. Hua Zijing immediately examined the treasure map and discovered that it was left behind by a core formation cultivator. Aside from the azure yuan treasure pot, the red and black robe used for dancing is the most precious. The senior student who obtained this defensive magic weapon was both excited and conflicted. She was excited because she had made a huge profit, but conflicted because the red and black robe didn't fit her perfectly. Look, some shameless person is going to drive that. Ming Yihua pointed to the artifact sphere priced at 800,000 merit points. Yuan Jinjun led another ordinary-looking young man to the stall. The latter's eyes lit up with a yellow light as he carefully examined it. That's Ming Yu, the vice president of the student council. His mirror of light technique ranks him among the top 3 in the entire treasure cave in terms of accuracy in appraising artifact spheres. Mi Yudao truly lived up to his reputation as a know-it-all. There was no one he didn't know. Why did you put it down? However, to their surprise, Minju shook his head after looking at the artifact-containing sphere. Then Yuan Jinjun, who had been holding a piece of equipment and was eager to open it, suddenly lost interest and left with Minju. I'll go ask. Miyu had many connections, so he quietly slipped into the 3-story villa, asked Lu Tianxuan for information, and quickly learned the whole story. After learning from Yu that the artifact-containing ball contained the Xuan Yang cauldron, Yuan Jinjun wanted to intercept it and open it. However, he was a suspicious man. Before opening it, he asked Minju to take a look. After the latter used his mirror of light technique, he found that he could only see a blurry cauldron shape and could not see any patterns that could prove it was the Xuan Yang cauldron. Because Minju considers his mirror of Dharma eyes to be the best in the academy, he couldn't even see the cauldron pattern, so he judged that the two of you were working with that stall owner to set a trap for Yuan Jinjun, wanting him to use 800,000 merits to buy that artifact-containing ball and become a sucker. After listening to Mi Yudao's words, Chen Mobai and Ming Yihua looked at each other in bewilderment. How can these student council members be so confident? End of this chapter. Chapter 271 Minju. Chapter 271 Minju. Things suddenly started to get better. After the self-important student council members examined it, the artifact sphere that sealed the Xuan Yang cauldron, which was initially highly sought after, instantly became an object of ridicule. The slightly yellow-skinned young man's face turned even more bitter as he tried to cut his losses. The price has been reduced again and again, from 800,000 merits, 600,000, 300,000, 100,000. Finally, the reward was reduced to 50,000 merits, but still no one paid any attention. All right, it's my turn. When Ming Yihua saw this, his eyes lit up, and he was about to step forward to buy the artifact ball that the student council had already identified as a scam. Wait a little longer, let's go see the one that senior Mi found first. Chen Mobai stopped him. Mi Yudao was slightly taken aback, but quickly realized what he meant and nodded with a smile. The 3 left the square and then rode the crimson clouds in smoke robe, descending 800 meters before flying into a tunnel about 2 meters in diameter. They traversed another 500 or 600 meters along the way, with the narrowest sections only wide enough for one person to fly horizontally through. Finally, they arrived at the location of the fire spirit tree. A scorching heat rushed towards him. Chen Mobai looked at the dark red spirit tree rooted in the fiery red rubble and activated his void insight eye. The artifact sphere, buried among the roots and broken rocks, instantly lost its mist and clearly came into his view. The sealed artifact sphere could not be concealed by his penetrating spiritual eyes. However, upon closer inspection, he discovered another artifact sphere sealed within the fire spirit tree, and he found that he was unable to see through the seal. It is a formation plate. Chen Mobai wore black-rimmed glasses, and the subtle fluctuations in his emotions went unnoticed by the 2 people beside him. After examining the artifact sphere that Mi Yudao had found, He used a drawing app on his phone to sketch the artifact in the black and white vision he had seen after breaking through the seal. Thanks, I'll find a few more and ask you to take a look at them all at the end of next year. Looking at the image of the magical artifact that Chen Mobai had sent over, Mi Yudao was filled with admiration for his outstanding drawing skills. Old Chen is the top student in our talisman department this year, and his drawing skills are almost the same as mine. When Ming Yihua said this, he also gave himself a compliment. However, what he said is also true. Weapon refiners also need excellent blueprint design skills. Before learning mechanical drawing, you also need to learn hand drawing skills. Although Ming Yihua's realistic style and Chen Mobai's ethereal and minimalist style are different, they have both been referenced and imitated by classmates and even younger students, and both are exceptional. After examining the artifact sphere, the three returned to the plaza. At this point, only 30 or 40 people remained. The artifact-containing sphere of that Xuan Yang cauldron has not yet been sold. Chen Mobai and his two companions pretended to be very surprised and went up to ask about the price. 20,000 merit points, do you want them? The slightly yellow-skinned young man, who had previously refused to lower his price to 800,000, was now no longer putting on airs and listlessly made a price without any energy. He thought that as long as he sold it, that would be enough. He then devoted himself to seclusion and stopped wasting time searching for the artifact orb. Okay, scan the code or transfer. Ming Yihua stopped mocking him and took out his phone to make the payment. The slightly yellow-skinned young man was stunned for a moment, knowing that he hadn't really had any hope. After all, it takes 100 credits to redeem a single instrument, so everyone is extremely careful when they tee off. Since the student council has already determined that this is just an ordinary artifact ball, basically no one will buy it. He had already decided that if he couldn't sell it by tomorrow morning, he would just throw the artifact ball into any tunnel he could find. Now whatever we can sell is pure profit. Without any hesitation, he immediately added Ming Yihua as a friend and received a transfer from the latter. Good luck. After handing the artifact-containing ball from the stall to Ming Yihua, the slightly yellow-skinned young man left those words and turned to leave. But just as he was leaving the square and about to cross the undercurrent, he felt a sense of resentment. However, since everything has already been sold, what can be done even if one is unwilling? With a sigh, he disappeared at the end of the tunnel. On the other side, Ming Yihua gazed at the white jade sphere, which was faintly visible through the watch case, and couldn't put it down. I wonder when I'll finally get my hands on that artifact fragment. If he had a fragment of the artifact in his hand right now, Ming Yihua would want to open this artifact-containing ball on the spot. Oh, you trust me that much? Hearing his mutterings, Chen Mobai smiled and asked. After all, that's something worth 100 credits. Although Chen Mobai has cultivated the void eye, his cultivation time is still short. Logically speaking, his skills in this area are definitely not as good as Ming Yu, the vice president of the student council. That's for sure, and I'm not bragging, but in the same grade, you and I are definitely better than this Minju. Ming Yihua's words made Chen Mobai chuckle, and then he took out a piece of artifact and handed it to him. Old Chen, what do you mean by this? You can use it first, just give me back your piece later. Chen Mobai's words startled Ming Yihua, who couldn't help but ask a question. What if you happen to have your eye on something else? Wouldn't that delay your plans? It's all right, I didn't have anyone I liked anyway. All right then, I won't stand on ceremony with you. At most, I'll ask Teacher Yan to take me to the depths of Wanbao Cave as soon as school starts next year to return the artifact fragment to you. Ming Yihua's foundation establishment was unfortunate, coinciding with the end of the semester. Otherwise, given his status in the weapon forging department, with Master Shaeyang in seclusion, Master Deng, the department head, would certainly have been willing to make the trip. Having said that, Ming Yihua accepted Chen Mobai's artifact fragment. Then, he immediately activated the artifact ball in his hand. A crimson light like a long dragon rushed in and instantly stripped the white jade ball in Ming Yihua's hand of its outer shell, revealing its true form. It was indeed a dark blue-green round cauldron, with 3 legs and 2 handles. The precious light was contained, but the moment it touched one's eyes, one could feel its weight and heat. It really is the Xuan Yang cauldron. Mi Yudo, who was standing to the side, couldn't help but marvel at the round cauldron. The scene of the weapon-containing sphere being activated also attracted the attention of the remaining 30 or 40 people. Soon everyone knew that they had obtained a second-tier, high-grade magic weapon. In the student council's second-floor conference room, Yuan Jinjun was expressing his gratitude to Minjiu. If it weren't for you, I would have been tricked out of 800,000 merits by these 3 cunning junior students. HMPH, they're trying to pull a fast one on our student council. These younger students have lost all respect for their seniors. All right, if you don't get greedy, these tricks won't work on you. Hua Zijing, seated at the head of the conference table, frowned slightly, her exquisite face showing a hint of disdain. Upon hearing this, Yuan Jinjun looked embarrassed and dared not refute. On the contrary, Minjiu frowned and was about to retort. A crimson light shone outside the window. Someone opened it again. The sight of the divine light of fire had been seen more than 20 times today. Lu Tianxuan immediately seized the opportunity to change the subject to prevent the 2 vice presidents from arguing. Go and find out what kind of car they got. Minjiu gave an order to Yuan Jinjun, who immediately accepted and left. 15 minutes later, he walked in, his face flushed and pale, looking at Minjiu with a strange expression. Why are you looking at me like that? When Minjiu saw that Yuan Jinjun, who had previously been very respectful to him, was now looking at him with a mixture of suspicion, anger, and doubt, he couldn't help but frown. It's that artifact-containing ball that you appraised. It's been opened. Yuan Jinjun said something, but Minjiu hadn't reacted yet. Hua Zijing and Lu Tianxuan, on the other hand, looked surprised and exchanged a glance, as if they had realized something. The 2 newly established foundation establishment cultivators were the ones who kicked off the game, and the magical artifact inside is the Xuan Yang cauldron. That's impossible. As soon as Yuan Jinjun finished speaking, Minjiu stood up and exclaimed in shock and anger. He even disregarded his usual composure, flying out of the window and transforming into a yellow light, landing in front of Chen Mobai and the other 2. Seeing Ming Yihua holding the dark blue round cauldron with both hands, seemingly treasuring it, Ming Yu was completely stunned. After seeing it with their own eyes, no matter how much they denied it, the facts were right in front of everyone. Chen Mobai's mastery of the spirit eye technique is truly superior to his. How could a 5th-grade foundation establishment cultivator possibly be so powerful? At this moment, Minjiu noticed the gazes around him. The news that he had appraised the 800,000 eighths capacity artifact ball had spread far and wide within half a day. He had previously made a solemn promise that even with his clear vision, he couldn't confirm the patterns on the cauldron, so no one could be certain that the magic artifact inside was a second-tier high-grade Xuan Yang cauldron. It was precisely because of trust in his judgment that the artifact-containing ball, which had been hotly debated and had reached an astronomical price, became unwanted by the evening and was given to Ming Yihua by the slightly yellow-haired youth for a near-fire sale of 20,000 merit points. The suspicious gazes around him made Minjiu, who always had a high opinion of himself, blush. Damn student council, are you deliberately cooperating with these 2 guys to trick me out of the artifact orb I painstakingly retrieved from the lava at a low price? A furious voice rang out, and everyone turned to see the slightly sallow-faced young man. He had already left, but the news that Ming Yihua had obtained the Xuan Yang cauldron was relayed to him by people in the square who knew him. The feeling of being stabbed in the heart almost made him vomit blood. When he rushed back, he saw Minjiu and Chen Mobai standing together. He naturally assumed that the bad guys in the student council had deliberately found 2 unfamiliar faces to trick his precious one. Watch your words. You're slandering the student council for its fairness. Are you going to be publicly criticized by the entire school? Minjiu was already angry, and now that he had been slandered by the slightly yellow-skinned youth, he couldn't stand it. He roared angrily with a gloomy face. "You bastard, do you really think your student council is an academic affairs office?" The anger in the slightly yellow-skinned youth's heart had been building up in waves. After Minjiu appraised it at noon, the artifact ball that could have been sold for a sky-high price ended up being sold at a loss. He even had to endure the mocking looks from many of the Tao Academy students in the square. At that time, he thought that his magic weapon ball was just the magic liquid that was starting to fail, and that the magic weapon sealed inside was actually just so-so, so he tolerated it. After all, charging 800,000 merit points for an ordinary second-tier magic weapon is indeed a bit excessive. But now that the misunderstanding has been cleared up, it really is an excellent magic artifact, and it is an all-around second-grade superior Xuan Yang cauldron. Its market price is at least tens of millions of merit points. Now all his anger surged up, and the slightly yellow-skinned youth ignored Chen Mobai and the other two minor characters, clenched his fists and rushed towards Mingyu. "How dare you!" A burst of yellow light erupted, and Mingyu's clothes turned out to be a second-tier magic robe, which directly repelled the young man. But the fact that someone dared to lay a hand on him, the vice president of the student council, infuriated him, who always considered himself superior. He took out a golden wooden stick and couldn't resist smashing it down on the slightly yellow-skinned youth who charged forward again. This golden wooden strip is also a second-tier magic artifact, a masterpiece he created using his clear mirror Dharma eye, a second-tier superior grade 9 flame wood. The radiance of the ritual implement burst forth, and the protective aura of the slightly yellow youth dissipated the instant it touched him. Just as he was about to be struck on the head by the 9 flame wood, a beam of azure sword light burst forth from afar, striking the side of the 9 flame wood precisely, thus deflecting the magical artifact. With a loud bang, the 9 flame wood fell to the ground, creating a sizable crater. Minju turned his head and stared intently at Chen Mobai, who was wielding the divine wood sword. An idea had already flashed through his mind to clear his name. "I understand now. Your target was me, not one Kim Jun. They used this artifact orb, whose outcome was already known, to trap me, just to ruin my reputation. HMPH, only that bitch would have such thoughts, but I saw through her in the end." Just as Minju was halfway through his story, Chen Mobai couldn't take it anymore. He simply couldn't stand it. Moreover, he still felt a little guilty towards the slightly yellow-skinned youth. Although finding a bargain was his own skill, being the one who was cheated must have felt terrible. Seeing that the latter was on the verge of a mental breakdown, as a fellow student of the Tao Academy, he couldn't bear to see his body suffer any more serious damage. "After I exposed you, you became angry and ashamed. I'll first suppress you all, and then ask the teachers from the Academic Affairs Office to come and investigate the truth of the matter and restore my innocence and justice." As Minju spoke, he glanced at Chen Mobai and the others with a cold smile. He had already used his clear mirror eye to check the cultivation levels of the three people, and they were all only at the first level of foundation establishment. Even in a 1-on-3 situation, he could easily defeat his opponent. Thinking this way, he gripped the 9 flame wood tightly in his hand, subconsciously ignoring the scene where the second-tier low-grade divine wood sword easily deflected his second-tier high-grade magic weapon, assuming it was because he hadn't been serious. "Chatter." Chen Mobai's words were still quite polite. If it were Ming Yihua, she probably would have said something like, "What are you barking about?" 5 red and yellow halos appeared at the top of the wooden strips, transforming into ripples that swept across the fire elemental energy in the square. Like a bright yellow vortex rapidly taking shape, it formed a domain that made people feel heavy. 5 layers of foundation building. Since Minjiu had used his mirror of light to probe his cultivation level first, Chen Mobai also used his void-piercing eyes to look at him without hesitation, and immediately saw through the former's realm. "HMPH, it's not too late for you to surrender now." Minju made no attempt to conceal his abilities, unleashing his powerful cultivation level with abandon. End of this chapter. Chapter 272, you should clear your throat first. Chapter 272, You should clear your throat first. The Foundation establishment, cultivators watching from the sidelines showed anger on their faces, disapproving of Minjiu's behavior. However, some people believed Minjiu's imagination and thought that he had really been tricked by Chen Mobai and the other freshmen. Miyudao inwardly groaned, but if he severed ties now, the reputation of abandoning his friends would haunt him for the rest of his life. Senior Ming, there must be some misunderstanding here. Why don't we stop and find a place to talk things out and sort out the whole story? He could only step forward and see if he could alleviate the situation. HMPH, you're in cahoots with them too, trying to take advantage of the chaos in front of me and play the peacemaker. But Minjiu didn't even look at him properly. He thought he had exposed Chen Mobai and the others' conspiracy to slander him. His spirit burst forth, and the 9-flame wood rippled in circles, with a powerful binding force pressing down. Ming Yihua and Mi Yudo both felt their bodies begin to feel heavy, and even blinking their eyelids required a lot of spiritual energy. It's tough. I can only explain it to the student council through Lu Tianxuan afterwards. Mi Yudao inwardly groaned, but had no intention of resisting and surrendered without resistance. On the contrary, Ming Yihua's face flushed as he began to unleash the pure yang spiritual power within his body, attempting to break free from the binding power of the 9-flaming wood. You dare to attack me with only the 5th level of Foundation establishment. You seem to be overestimating yourself. But at that moment, Chen Mobai said something that shocked everyone present. How can this person be so arrogant? It's understandable that the slightly yellow-skinned young man lost his temper and attacked Minjiu. But this handsome junior student, who was clearly very calm, how could he say something so ridiculous and laughable? Who is overestimating themselves? Although many people disapproved of Minjiu bullying the new students, they acknowledged his cultivation level. With his Foundation establishment level 5 and the 9-flame wood, only a handful of students in the entire academy could defeat him head-on. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to become the vice president. To put up a stubborn resistance. Minjiu sneered, no longer wanting to speak to Chen Mobai. He unleashed 80% of the power he could control from the 9-flaming wood, intending to demonstrate his terrifying strength in front of these dozens of people, both to intimidate everyone and to pave the way for clearing his name later. Red and yellow ripples appeared around Chen Mobai and the other two like a vortex, and it looked like they were about to completely imprison them. Ming Yihua gritted his teeth, about to activate the flame burst technique on the pure yang scroll to unleash his natal spiritual fire for refining weapons, when a dazzling purple flame suddenly shone beside him. Turning his head to look, he saw a purple flame with a faint wisp of blue in the center, beating like a heart, in Chen Mobai's palm. Although the flame was only the size of a fist, everyone felt its blinding light and intense heat the moment they saw it. Second-tier spirit fire. But it's simply unrealistic to think that this will defeat Minjiu. Just when everyone thought Chen Mobai was only going to struggle, the purple-blue flame the size of his fist suddenly burst out with a brilliant deep purple sword light. He did not use the flying sparrow hairpin, but only used the azure sun fire seed to activate the purple fire sword light. The sword flashed like a bolt of lightning. In the instant of its eruption, it slashed into the invisible ripples of the 9-flame wood in front of it, like a stone skipping across the water, splashing up ripples, and swiftly and unstoppably broke out of the imprisoning vortex. Then, with its remaining momentum, it landed straight on Minjiu's head. Sword rainbow splits. An incredulous look appeared in their eyes. Are there really sword cultivators with such a level of skill in the academy? But it was too late for regrets at this point. Minjiu's divine sense erupted, and the magic robe on his body emitted a yellow precious light, forming a solid barrier that blocked the brilliant deep purple sword light for a single breath. With a loud bang, the yellow light shattered, like a beautiful firework display. Taking advantage of this opening, Minjiu retreated again and again, no longer daring to hold back. He unleashed his full spiritual power and divine sense, pushing the power of the 9-flaming wood in his hand to its limit. But the 6 bright yellow halos that had just formed were shattered one by the brilliant deep purple sword light that followed. Junior, this is all a misunderstanding. Show mercy. Amidst spitting out blood, Minjiu's voice rang out, pleading for mercy. Meanwhile, from the student council's small villa, Hua Zijing's delicate shout came, accompanied by a beam of shimmering light rushing towards Minju, as if she wanted to block the sword for him. Upon seeing this, Chen Mobai deliberately paused the sword light emanating from his palm. Only when Hua Zijing's azure sky fell did he strike again. With a whoosh, when the azure waves touched the sword light, it was like mercury spilling onto the ground, disintegrating into countless water droplets that scattered across the earth. Amidst the incredulous gazes of everyone, the brilliant, deep purple sword light stopped between Ming Yu's eyebrows, circling his scalp like a dragon, giving him a perm, and then, as if time had reversed, returned to Chen Mobai's palm. Is this all the student council vice presidents are capable of? After retracting his sword, Chen Mobai sighed and said listlessly to Ming Yihua beside him, "Young Junior, may I ask your name?" Hua Zijing landed with Lu Tianxuan and Yuan Jinjun, both looking shocked. She greeted Chen Mobai with the ancient etiquette of the Wuki Dao Academy and asked him questions. Class of 2012, Chen Mobai. Now that we've made our move, there's no need to hide anything. After giving his name, he clenched his fist and retrieved the ball of azure sun flame, then put one hand behind his back, looking bored. Class of 2012. He's in the same class as Zhongli Tianyu. I never expected that besides that monster, there would be another even more terrifying monster. Upon hearing Chen Mobai's background, the Foundation establishment cultivators around him were all taken aback. The reason why Zhongli Tianyu is called a monster is mainly because people are optimistic about his future. Everyone believes that he will definitely be able to surpass Zuo Qiushi in the 10th grade. But now, Chen Mobai, this sword genius who has mastered the sword rainbow dividing light, has completely transcended the limitations of realm. Even with both Minjiu and Hua Zijing, the two vice presidents of the student council, attacking at the same time, they couldn't withstand his sword strike. This person is someone that only Zuo Qiushi and the entire student council could possibly fight. Junior Chen, Minjiu was in the wrong first, and I apologize to you on his behalf. Hua Zijing glared at Ming Yu, who didn't dare to say anything more at this moment. He lowered his head and pretended to reflect, afraid that Chen Mobai would notice him and cut him with his sword again. Do you want to accept it? Chen Mobai pretended to think for a moment, then turned to Ming Yihua and Mi Yudao with a troubled expression and asked. The latter swallowed hard, looking completely dazed and speechless. I feel it's a bit insincere. But Ming Yihua was naturally bold, and he readily agreed with her statement. My two junior brothers, if you're willing, I can let you use the treasure map 10 times for free. Hua Zijing misunderstood, thinking that Chen Mobai and the other person were trying to extort money from her. No, what I mean is, your apology isn't sincere enough. Chen Mobai stretched out his hand and pointed at Hua Zijing. Although the latter was a beauty and the vice president of the student council, she had no courage to fight again after that sword strike. Minjiu, come over here and apologize. Hua Zijing immediately shouted. At this moment, Minjiu no longer cared about saving face. When Chen Mobai's sword was about to strike, he felt the threat of death for the first time. Having grown up in a comfortable and peaceful environment, his Dao heart had been completely shattered by this sword strike. My two juniors, I was wrong in this matter, please forgive me. Without any hesitation, Minjiu immediately lowered his head and came over, performing an ancient apology bow to Chen Mobai and the other two. This is barely considered a bit of sincerity. Don't forget to use the treasure map 10 times. Seeing this, Ming Yihua nodded with a satisfied look as he held the Xuan Yang cauldron. Oh, so you're just going to leave it like this? But it's clear that Chen Mobai and Ming Yihua's thinking is not aligned this time. Then what else do you want? Why don't you make him apologize too? Ming Yihua didn't quite understand Chen Mobai's meaning, so he pointed to Yuan Jinjun, whose face was ashen. While the latter was sweating profusely, Chen Mobai shook his head helplessly. I originally wanted the guild leader, Zhuoqiushi, to come and apologize, to see if my sword light could win against a 7th-level Foundation establishment cultivator. Hiss. Upon hearing Chen Mobai's words, everyone, including Ming Yihua, gasped in shock. Brother, I know you're tough, but going straight for Zhuoqiushi, isn't that a bit too reckless? Ming Yihua secretly leaned closer, indicating that that was enough and there was no need to go too far. Since you've put it that way, let's leave it at that. Chen Mobai was willing to listen to advice, but his original plan was not bad. After all, if he were to fight someone in the late Foundation establishment stage in the Heavenly River realm, it would probably be a matter of life and death. The immortal sects mainly focus on sparring, and he can take advantage of this rare opportunity to see if there is any gap between himself and the late Foundation establishment stage. After 2 battles, he had a general idea of the lower limit of his own strength. They can basically kill those in the early stages of Foundation establishment, and those in the middle stages of Foundation establishment instantly. However, I haven't fought the late Foundation establishment level yet. The 7th level of Foundation establishment is the weakest of the late Foundation establishment levels, so it's a good opportunity to test my sword skills. However, it seems that Zhuoqiushi is not here, so if we continue to contradict him, it would seem a bit unreasonable. Chen Mobai shook his head listlessly and put the azure sun flame he was holding into his sleeve. Junior Chen, if you really want to spar with the president, you can leave your contact information. But at this moment, Hua Zijing was a little unconvinced. Although you have mastered the sword rainbow-splitting light technique and can instantly kill the 2 vice presidents, Zhuoqiushi has also instilled an invincible belief in them over the years. In front of so many people, the student council president was belittled in an almost contemptuous tone, which made Hua Zijing, the vice president and head of the secretariat who had followed Zhuoqiushi all the way, feel humiliated. Okay, when he's free, we'll arrange a time and place. But I'm going to attend the Chicheng Dongshan University Alliance exchange meeting soon, so you'd better make the arrangements quickly. Upon hearing this, Chen Mobai showed no signs of the worry that others had expected. Instead, he excitedly took out his phone and added Hua Zijing as a friend. Okay, please wait here, Junior Chen. After gritting her teeth and adding the nickname Madman to her contact information, Hua Zijing decided to immediately inform Zhuoqiushi about the matter. Chen Mobai didn't waste any more time here, and he left with Ming Yihua and Mi Yudo. Junior, if you ever need my help in the future, please feel free to contact me. After flying out of the tunnel, Mi Yudo looked at him with awe before taking his leave. Chen Mobai smiled and parted ways with him, then flew out of the back mountain with Ming Yihua, who had gained a lot. Thanks, bro. Holding the Xuan Yang cauldron, Ming Yihua looked satisfied. He hadn't expected to obtain such a precious magical artifact on his first visit to the Myriad Treasures Cave. There's no need for formalities between us. The 2 parted ways on campus, and Ming Yihua continued to live in the school dormitory. Chen Mobai then returned to the small wooden house he rented. After using a Xuan Yang cauldron to appease Ming Yihua, confirming that he would spend a long time appraising treasures and retrieving the incantation for refining them, and that he would no longer bother Ming Yihua to take him to the Wanbao cave, Chen Mobai specially adjusted the rainbow light of his flight home to the brightest mode. It even carried a few whooshing sounds, reminding Meng Huanger, his neighbor, that he had returned. After returning to the cabin, Chen Mobai waited for about half an hour before taking out his phone and tentatively sending a very direct message. Can I hear you sing? Yes. Student Union. Hua Zijing and the other 3 sat in the previous meeting room, where the atmosphere was exceptionally oppressive and somber. Vice President, I suddenly realized that I haven't been back to my hometown for a long time, and I suddenly want to go back this year. Yuan Jinjun cautiously said something to Hua Zijing. Go home, HMPH. You heard that the junior is also going to participate in the exchange meeting, and you're too scared to be in the same team as him, aren't you? Hua Zijing coldly exposed Yuan Jinjun's little scheme. The Chicheng Cave Heaven University Alliance exchange meeting has always been organized by the student unions of all participating universities. Hua Zijing has been in charge of this matter for 3 consecutive years. Yuan Jinjun is the member in charge of liaising with Chunyang Academy and is usually the most proactive in this matter. Because students from the Dance Weapon Academy always hold the highest status and are the most respected during the exchange meetings. After all, they are still young people who like to be looked at with admiration and respect. But after hearing that Chen Mobai would also be participating this year, Yuan Jinjun felt it was better to avoid the limelight and suddenly felt homesick. Alas, the fault lies entirely with me. Over the past few years, as the vice president of the student council, I have been too arrogant and complacent, unable to acknowledge that others have surpassed me in their mastery of the art of spiritual vision, which led to this incident. I am willing to resign to take responsibility. At this moment, Minjiu suddenly spoke, and everyone was taken aback. I can't make that decision myself. You can talk to the chairman yourself when he arrives. Although Hua Zijing usually disliked the arrogant Minjiu, she felt a little emotional when she heard that this colleague she had worked with for a long time was leaving. No need, I've already heard it. Suddenly, a deep, resonant voice rang out. Upon hearing this, everyone in the conference room looked delighted. Soon after, a burly young man dressed in a red and black robe was seated at the end of the table. President. Night. Chen Mobai was discussing his favorite music styles with Meng Huinger, and just as he was about to guide her to sing a few lines, a phone call suddenly interrupted their chat. It was Hua Zijing calling. Ugh, of all times. But Chen Mobai patiently answered the call. Hua Zijing didn't waste any words and challenged him on behalf of Zhuoqiushi. Fine, just you wait. After gritting his teeth and saying those words, Chen Mobai sent Meng Huinger a voice message, feeling embarrassed. Warm up your throat first. I'm going to have a magic duel with Zhuoqiushi. I'll be right back to listen to you sing. Inside the villa on the mountaintop, Meng Huinger's eyes widened upon hearing this voice message. She naturally knew who Zhuoqiushi was. End of this chapter. Chapter 273, Using Every Means. Chapter 273, Using Every Means. Chen Mobai crossed the underground currents and flew to the square where the student council was located. What was once a bustling place is now deserted and silent. Only one person was waiting for him. Chen Mobai landed and looked at Zhuoqiushi. He saw that Zhuoqiushi was burly, with a square face and no eyebrows. His hair was half red and half black, and he was wearing a red and black robe for dancing. A large, ring-pommel sword was stuck in the ground, supported by his right hand. His whole body seemed to be cast in bronze and iron, making him appear exceptionally robust. You've arrived. Zhuoqiushi didn't utter the harsh words Chen Mobai had imagined. He simply said something calmly. I have long admired your name, Guild Master. The reason I challenged you to a duel is simply to test my own strength. Seeing his attitude, Chen Mobai naturally treated him with courtesy and explained his reasons from the beginning. Oh, you want to know my strength? Do you also know about Little Crimson Sky? Little Red Sky, what is it? The unfamiliar terms in Zhuoqiushi's words surprised Chen Mobai. What important matter was this? One of the things that will be launched for the Millennium celebration of Chicheng Cave Heaven is that a big shot from the immortal sect came here to oversee the affairs of Little Chicheng Cave Heaven. According to my teacher's guess, it may be related to another world. Upon hearing this, Chen Mobai frowned slightly. Due to the scarcity of resources on Earth Origin Star, in order to support so many cultivators, the immortal sects would launch wars of expansion every so often. The highest level of war is world creation. The last war that opened up a world-level conflict was 2,000 years ago, when the immortal sect wiped out half of its population, and was on the verge of being invaded by beings from another world onto Earth's home planet. Although they ultimately won, it was only a Pyrrhic victory. Any other news? Chen Mobai couldn't help but ask, and Zhuoqiushi across from him was stunned. I invited you here to fight, not to chat. Oh, I'm sorry, I've been fascinated by war since I was a child, so when I heard that it was possible to open up the world, I couldn't help myself. Zuo was too lazy to say anything more, so he drew his ring pommel sword. The moment the blade was drawn, it shone with a cold light. It was about 1.3 meters long, slender and straight, with an arc at the tip of the blade. With each swing, the blade's light illuminated half of the square. Why are you alone? Where are the other members of the student council? At this moment, Chen Mobai noticed a problem. There were only the two of them in the square. To avoid revealing the exact outcome of the battle, it's easier to operate with just the two of us. After saying something inexplicable, Zuo gripped his sword and unleashed a dazzling blade of light, like a crescent moon piercing the sky, sharp and whistling. Chen Mobai didn't say anything more. The divine wood sword flew out from his sleeve. While shattering the blade's edge, it darted towards his opponent like a swimming fish, carrying a long rainbow of sword energy. Sword-like rainbows fell like rain, covering the sky and the earth. However, Zuo merely held his longsword horizontally and vertically, and the resulting cross-shaped blade light cleaved through the oncoming sword rainbow. Should we test the waters first? From Hua Zijing and the others, Zuo naturally knew that Chen Mobai was a powerful swordsman who had mastered the sword rainbow dividing light technique. However, the fact that he was now using the sword rainbow made him frown slightly. Then I'll make the first move. Zuo gripped the knife in his right hand and suddenly made a hand seal with his left. Chen Mobai then felt the surrounding fire elemental energy become active, and in an instant, a sea of fire ignited around him. The fire fixation technique was used, and the dark red sea of fire that was about to engulf him suddenly stopped in place. Then, as if controlled by Chen Mobai, it condensed into a crimson bolt of lightning in his palm. Bing Fire Divine Thunder Technique. After a period of practice, Chen Mobai had mastered this thunder technique, but this was the first time he had used it against an opponent who happened to be a formidable opponent. Amidst the thunderous roar, a bolt of lightning streaked across the void, carrying a faint smell of burning. It struck Zuo head, breaking through 3 defensive spells he had cast, but was ultimately blocked by the spiritual light emanating from his red and black robe, and vanished without a trace. But at that moment, Chen Mobai reached out and pulled out his flying sparrow hairpin. After testing the man's strength 3 times, he had a general idea of his opponent's abilities. After all, he had only been cultivating for a short time, and the power of his spells was not strong. They posed no threat to Zuo at all. As expected, the only technique he could use to ignore the difference in cultivation level was his sword rainbow splitting light. Thinking that he would soon be going back to hear Meng Huanger sing, Chen Mobai stopped holding back and used his strongest techniques. A brilliant, deep purple sword light flashed and shot out from his palm, centered on the flying sparrow hairpin. Like a laser beam piercing the sky, it sliced through the 12 blade beams unleashed by Zuo. Its momentum continued, even penetrating the protective aura of Wu Qi's red and black robe. This was the first time Chen Mobai's sword light had been blocked. I don't know if Zuo is really that powerful, or if this Taoist Academy's defensive robe is that strong. As the blade flashed, Zuo charged straight at Chen Mobai, braving the sword light. The azure scale arm guards lit up, and countless dark blue spots flew out from the sleeves, transforming into a solid shield that blocked the opponent's longsword. At the same time, Chen Mobai stretched out his left hand, which was behind his back, and grasped a golden jade axe, seemingly waiting for Zuo to come to him. As the axe fell, the red and black robes of the dancer finally reached their limit when faced with the attacks of the 2 magical weapons. Zuo swung his sword, trying to block the golden jade axe. But then he found his wrist tightened, and for a moment he couldn't pull the knife back. Looking down, he saw that patches of blue scales had somehow attached themselves to the bronze skin from his wrists to his elbows. At the crucial moment, they activated a paralyzing spiritual power, creating an opening for him. Just as the golden axe was about to strike, Zuo had no choice but to open his mouth and spit out a fiery red bead. With a loud bang, Chen Mobai felt as if his hand holding the axe had been subjected to a tremendous impact. With a sharp pain in his tiger's mouth, he couldn't help but let go, allowing the axe to fly into the air and stick into the top of the cave wall. At this point, he had already left the front gate wide open. Zuokyushi shouted, unleashing a burst of spiritual power far exceeding Chen Mobai's. As he shattered the blue scales on his arm, he reversed the blades with both hands and slashed at Chen Mobai's shoulder and chest with the back of the blades. At the crucial moment of victory or defeat, Chen Mobai's eyes suddenly shone with a clear, bright light, and his divine sense was activated to its limit. Zuokyushi, as expected of a Foundation Establishment Level 7 expert who has consistently held the top spot among students at the Wuki Dao Academy, possesses 3 magical artifacts and fighting skills that are far superior to others, making him the strongest opponent Chen Mobai has ever encountered in his life. If he has already merged with the divine at this point, he can use his divine sense to unleash the divine slash, distracting the opponent's mind and allowing them to dodge the attack. Unfortunately, his relationship with Meng Huanger hadn't been fully developed yet, so he didn't listen to many songs. Even so, Chen Mobai still has one trump card. A crimson flame sword aura erupted behind him, as if another powerful Foundation Establishment cultivator was lying in ambush, seizing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to stab at Zuokyushi's brow. This strike will certainly render Chen Mobai unable to fight, but Zuokyushi will also be seriously injured by this sword. Since it was merely a friendly exchange, Zuokyushi naturally made the safest choice. With a flick of his wrist, he reversed the direction of the blade, deflecting the fiery sword energy while simultaneously kicking Chen Mobai in the chest. His shoes were also second-tier magical artifacts called cloud-stepping shoes, which, in addition to allowing him to fly, also possessed considerable power. If this kick lands, even a body cultivator would cough up a mouthful of blood. But Chen Mobai had already taken this opportunity to regain control of his body. He stretched out his right hand, and as the arm guard he was wearing reabsorbed the scales, its cold iron nature blocked the cloud-stepping boots. With a clang, after an extremely dull sound, the 2 figures were simultaneously forced back. At this moment, under Chen Mobai's divine control, the 2 flying swords, the flying sparrow hairpin and the divine wood sword, had once again transformed into sword light and sword rainbow. The sword energy of the divine wood sword crisscrossed into a net, slashing towards Zuokyushi. The latter's figure flew backward in midair, but the cloud-stepping boots flashed with spiritual light. Accompanied by the attack of the divine wood sword, his body constantly adjusted its posture, and the long sword in his hand was wielded in a very short time, defending without leaving any gaps. This guy is even more capable than I imagined. Seeing this, Chen Mobai finally made up his mind and activated the yang-raising technique. He opened his mouth and exhaled his primordial yang energy towards the flying sparrow hairpin in midair. The Qingyang fire seed, which was originally integrated with the small flying sword, instantly burned fiercely as if it had been doused with oil. The color has also changed from deep purple to half purple and half blue. The flying sparrow hairpin, imbued with the purple and blue flames, further enhanced the already incredibly sharp purple flame sword light to an even higher level. A dazzling light shone. Suddenly, a purple sun appeared in this enormous cave that had existed for countless millennia, illuminating all the darkness and carrying a terrifying sword intent capable of cutting down everything. It flew to the top of Zuokyushi's head, who had just landed. The latter's expression changed drastically upon seeing this scene. His face turned pale at first, then flushed red, as if he had cast some kind of spell to stimulate his potential, and his already vigorous spiritual energy was instantly boosted to another level. Then he spat out the same fiery red spirit orb that had knocked away the golden jade axe and caused Chen Mobai's body to become uncontrollable, but this time it revealed its true power. The fiery red light shone brightly, carrying a trace of the true meaning of the great Tao, and collided with the flying sparrow hairpin. Amidst the thunderous roar, Zuokyushi, who was at the center of the collision between the 2 forces, was sent flying backward again, and a trace of blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. Chen Mobai used the little spiritual power he had left to activate the Crimson Cloud and Mist magic ring, using the power of this magical artifact to envelop his entire body, blocking the aftershocks, while simultaneously activating his divine sense. The faceless puppet, hidden in the shadows, darted out like a shadow. Cough, cough. Half an hour later, the aftershocks of the collision between the spirit pearl and the sword light finally dissipated. Zhuoqiu, she waved his wide sleeves, wiping away the bloodstains from the corner of his mouth and clearing away the surrounding dust. Gradually, Chen Mobai's figure appeared in his eyes. As the wisps of smoke and clouds dissipated, he was revealed to be unharmed and composed. In comparison, although Zhuo Qiushi wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth in time, and his red and black robes remained spotless, his overall demeanor was somewhat disordered. However, as the top person in the academy in recent years, he had no intention of admitting defeat so easily. Although using a third-tier magic weapon was a bit unfair, Zhuo Qiushi was willing to temporarily set aside his pride in the face of failure. You lost. But just as Zhuo Qiushi was about to unleash the true power of his fire spirit orb, Chen Mobai's voice rang out. Lost? Impossible. Just as Zhuo Qiushi was retorting, he felt a chilling coldness on his back, as if a sharp sword was pressed against his back, making him dare not move. He cheated, and he called in other accomplices. The thought immediately flashed through Zhuo Qiushi's mind. Immediately, he remembered that he had clearly cornered Chen Mobai, but it was a mysterious fiery sword light from behind that forced him to turn his blade around and defend, thus missing the chance to win. I give up. What happened? At this point, Zhuo Qiushi was not a sore loser. He put down his long sword and dispersed the liquid spiritual energy that he had already gathered. He stared directly into Chen Mobai's clear and bright spiritual eyes. Didn't you inquire about my reputation before you fought me? Chen Mobai, however, asked the question out of curiosity. I've inquired. You're the #1 person in the class of 5012 besides Zhongli Tianyu, #1 in talismans, #1 in swordsmanship, #1 in puppetry. Zhuo Qiushi suddenly stopped when he said the last 3 words. His eyes widened slowly, and he finally understood. I see. Ignoring the flying sword pressed against his back, Zhuo Qiushi turned around and indeed saw the formless puppet holding the divine wood sword, and couldn't help but sigh. Who would notice that you, a sword cultivator, are also a puppeteer? You're quite good. If you hadn't underestimated me at the beginning, you might have been able to beat me. Chen Mobai's voice came from behind Zhuo Qiushi. He snapped his fingers, and the Wuxiang puppet sheathed its sword, jumped up and landed beside him. I thought I valued you highly and had used all my strength, so why do you think I underestimated you? Zhuo Qiushi turned around again, looked directly at Chen Mobai, and asked with some confusion. Your bead is a third-tier magic artifact, isn't it? Chen Mobai pointed to the fire spirit orb, which had been motionless since colliding with the flying sparrow hairpin in midair. At first I didn't notice, but now that I think about it, a magic weapon that can withstand a top-tier second-order golden jade axe and cause him to lose control of his body must be a third-order weapon. Moreover, everyone in the Wuqi Dao Academy knows that Zhuo Qiushi cultivates the Cantong Qi and possesses a third-tier Cantong magic weapon. That's right, but a loss is a loss. Your formless puppet is also a third-tier puppet. If you had activated it from the beginning, even if I had used the true power of the fire spirit orb to fight 2 of you, I might not have been a match for you. Zhuo Qiushi's demeanor was much better than Chen Mobai had imagined. He took the initiative to admit his defeat. It's different. Because of the spirit stone, my formless puppet only has the power of 3 strikes. If we were to do it again, you should win. Chen Mobai shook his head, but what he said was only half true. What was placed in the formless puppet was indeed a mid-grade spirit stone, with only the power of 3 strikes. If he disregards the loss of that high-grade spirit stone, the power that this formless puppet can unleash should not be inferior to Zhuo Qiushi's third-tier magic weapon. I'm not someone who can't afford to lose. I just graduated this year and I was wondering who would take over. Are you interested? After losing, Zuo Kiyoshi breathed a sigh of relief and made an invitation that surprised Chen Mobai. Me, student council president, isn't that a bit too casual? It's all right as long as you agree, I'll take care of the rest. Chen Mobai was not interested in joining the student council because he didn't want to do trivial things. But if you were to make him the president directly, it might not be out of the question. End of this chapter. Chapter 274, Taking the Lead. Chapter 274, Taking the Lead. Do you know why I moved everyone away so they wouldn't be able to witness the outcome of our duel? Zuo Kiyoshi asked a very strange question, which Chen Mobai naturally did not know. The student council presidents of the 4 major academies are the face of their respective schools and are compared by all the college students in the immortal sect. I consider myself to be qualified and have not disgraced the Dance Weapon Academy. The successor should naturally not be weak either. At this point, Zuo Kiyoshi pointed to Chen Mobai, indicating that he was a good fit. Zhongli Tianyu is good. He is my first choice after him, but he is only at the 5th level of foundation establishment now, and he needs to hone his skills for another 2 years before he can take on this position. You're not bad. Although your cultivation level is low, your talent for combat is exceptionally strong. I checked your information, and the reason you were able to enter our academy is because you were invincible among your peers in Danxia City. My original plan was to beat you and then announce to the outside world that you and I fought to a draw, which would be a way to boost your reputation. After all, you have mastered the sword rainbow splitting light technique, and if I helped you promote this achievement, it wouldn't be easily exposed. Unfortunately, Zuo Kiyoshi lost. However, precisely because of this, what was originally just a thought in his mind became a decision he made instantly after witnessing Chen Mobai's terrifying fighting talent. You're the one. Chen Mobai was somewhat tempted, but the thought that he might disappear frequently made him wonder if having the position of student council president would affect his exploration of the heavenly river realm. Don't worry about that. As the student council president, I'll be a hands-off manager and leave everything to Hua Zijing and the others. After I graduate, you'll become the president, and it might be better if you don't want to get involved. After hearing Zuo Kiyoshi's words, Chen Mobai nodded and then asked the most important question. What are the benefits of being the student council president? What aspect are you referring to? Zuo Kiyoshi was a little unsure what Chen Mobai meant by benefits. He was about to embark on his official career and had a deep understanding of the word. He instantly thought of several layers of meaning, so to avoid any misunderstanding, he simply asked directly. Substantive benefits such as elixirs, magical artifacts, academic credits, and vermilion fruits. As the student council president, do I receive any of these perks? Chen Mobai was quite naive, and the things he mentioned relieved Zuo Kiyoshi. Because the student union helps the Taoist Academy connect with a wide range of students and maintain some order, the Taoist Academy awards 5 credits to its members every year. As for magical artifacts, since the guild leader is the face of the academy, you will be given a set of second-tier dance artifacts, a red and black robe. Also, you can use the treasure map at will. The academy takes half of the credits earned from the treasure map, and the other half is also considered a benefit. These are the general benefits of the student union. The rest are various responsibilities and obligations, as well as some accompanying rights. After hearing this, Chen Mobai felt it was a bit too low. Only 5 credits a year. That's quite a lot. Only 10 people in the entire student council can get these 5 credits, and they're all my trusted confidants. Our main source of credit income comes from the treasure map. Although the academy takes half of it, if we're lucky, we can accumulate enough in a year or 2 to exchange for a magic weapon fragment. If the magic weapon you get is good, you, as the president, have the right to choose it first. Seeing Chen Mobai's slight disdain, Zuo Kiyoshi had no choice but to reveal some of the student council's hidden interests. Sure enough, Chen Mobai's eyes lit up when he heard this. It's much faster to collect rent than to painstakingly accumulate credits all by yourself. Every year at the end of the year, someone from the Taoist Academy opens the enchanted sphere. Since each person who opens the sphere has already spent 100 credits to exchange for the artifact fragment, they naturally wouldn't skimp on the mere 2 points for searching information on the myriad treasure map. Moreover, by leveraging the student council's influence, he could certainly be more efficient at gathering artifact spheres that might contain third-tier magical artifacts. If you put it that way, I feel like there's potential. Upon hearing Chen Mobai's words, Zhuo Qiushi patted his chest and declared that he would immediately abdicate and hand over the position to him. Is it really necessary to be so fast? I've already graduated this year. I'm just waiting to finish the handover of the student union before I start my duties at the Law Enforcement Bureau. If it weren't for you, I would have given up my position to Zijing for a couple of years before handing it over to Zhongli Tianyu or someone else who is more talented. Zhuo Qiushi did not hide anything and directly told Chen Mobai why he was in a hurry to abdicate. Indeed, compared to the promising career path in the immortal sect and the potential to obtain the Golden Elixir Jade Rejuvenation Pill, the position of Student Council President at the Dance Weapon Academy, while also a great opportunity to accumulate credits to exchange for the Fire Element Golden Elixir, naturally leads one to strive for the best option given the better choice available. I suppose Lan Haitian of Kunpeng Academy is the same. You trust me that much? Chen Mobai still felt like he was dreaming. How could he have won over the entire student council after defeating Zhuo Qiushi? I've personally tested your fighting talent, and it's the strongest I've ever seen in my life. The top disciples of the 4 major academies need to be powerful, and aren't you the most suitable candidate? Zhuo Qiushi asked a question in return, and Chen Mobai felt that the reason was still far-fetched. Besides, you are Director Qi's disciple. Even if you can't manage the student council well, he will clean up your mess. Anyway, after handing this position over to you, I can consider it as giving the academy an explanation. Only after hearing this last sentence did Chen Mobai finally understand. It turns out that Qi Yucheng's influence was also involved. Having said this, Zhuo Qiushi had finally revealed half of his true feelings, and Chen Mobai had no more doubts. Influenced by his maternal grandfather, he had a passion for becoming an official since childhood. Although it's just a minor official position in the school, it's still an official position. Soon after, members of various departments of the student union arrived. After I graduate, he will be the next president. Zhuo Qiushi was decisive and efficient. After identifying Chen Mobai as his successor in front of the person in charge, he submitted the application for the handover of the position in the Taoist Academy system. Wait, why is this? We need a reason. President, could you please explain the reason? Yuan Jinjun, who was originally waiting for Zhuo Qiushi to step in and teach Chen Mobai a lesson, couldn't understand and stared wide-eyed at the two of them. The others naturally disagreed in their hearts as well, but Zhuo Qiushi held great prestige in their minds, so they dared not openly oppose him and could only express their small protests in a roundabout way. I lost. He is the student with the strongest fighting talent in the academy in the last 100 years, and he is a strong man who can serve as the face of the academy. Is this reason enough? Zhuo Qiushi pointed to the traces of the battle in the cave, his face showing complete admiration. I don't believe you'll lose. The one who said this was Hua Zijing, who believed in Zhuo Qiushi as if he were a god. Since she joined the student council, she has attended several events with Zhuo Qiushi and other representatives from the Taoist academies, and she has never seen him lose. I don't believe I'll lose either, but a loss is a loss. It's not something to be proud of. Am I the kind of person who would tarnish my own reputation for the sake of others? Zhuo Qiushi asked a question in return, and Hua Zijing and the others were instantly speechless. Indeed, Zhuo Qiushi was powerful but not great. Starting tomorrow, Junior Chen will be the president of the student council. I have already submitted my application, and you all need to assist him in the future. The application has only just been submitted. How can the Taoist Academy's Academic Affairs Office approve it so quickly? And what if the Taoist Academy doesn't agree? Hua Zijing and the others were still somewhat unwilling. After all, Zhuo Qiushi should have been the one to inherit the position after graduation. Although she wasn't ambitious for the position, she still found it hard to accept that a junior who had just embarrassed her yesterday had been parachuted in. It's all right. The director of the academic affairs office is Chen's teacher. If he's still handling academic affairs, he'll probably approve it tonight after seeing this application. Zhuo Qiushi said something that made Hua Zijing and the others widen their eyes. There's this other connection too. Just then, a new email arrived on the computer where the student council handled matters. It was the reply from Zhuo Qiushi, who had resigned as president of the student council and recommended Chen Mobai to succeed him. Only 2 words. Agree. Beep, beep, beep. At the same time, a mass notification was sent to everyone's mobile phone on the entire campus network of the Dance Weapon Academy. After a period of internal selection, the Academic Affairs Office of our school has approved Chen Mobai, a student from the class of 2012, to succeed as the new president of the Taoist Academy Student Union. It is hoped that under his leadership, the student union will continue to play its role as a bridge and hub connecting the students, always keeping in mind its mission of serving the students, assisting teachers, and working together to create a better campus. Once this notice was issued, it meant that the situation was already settled, and even if Zhuo Qiushi wanted to return as president, it was probably too late to reverse the outcome. Chen Mobai felt like he was dreaming. Is that all? Zijing Minjiu Renyu, please stay behind. I have a few last words to say to you. At this moment, Zhuo Qiushi breathed a sigh of relief. He invited the 3 vice presidents of the student union to introduce Chen Mobai, while the rest of the people from various departments could only leave helplessly. Zhuo Qiushi, as expected of the most prestigious student council president in the academy over the years, shared his heartfelt thoughts. Hua Zijing and the other 2 expressed that they would not let down the student council they had worked so hard for over the years, and would do their best to assist their junior, Chen Mobai, and continue to play the role that the student council should play in the academy. Among them, Chen Mobai felt that Minjiu, whom he had beaten up, was the most enthusiastic, seemingly convinced of his defeat. Hua Zijing was initially somewhat unwilling, but as a staunch supporter of Zhuo Qiushi, she had no choice but to nod helplessly when the latter asked her for help. The last one, Shen Rinyu, was rather unremarkable. He had small eyes, a big mouth, and an upturned nose, which made his appearance a bit strange. However, his cultivation level was at the 6th level of the foundation establishment stage, second only to Zhuo Qiushi. He had never been beaten by Chen Mobai, and he still had some doubts about the latter's ability to succeed him, his eyes filled with caution and hesitation. However, he only joined the student council for academic credits and the benefits of the treasure map. With the overall situation already settled, he went with the flow and expressed his acknowledgement of Chen Mobai's rise to power. You will soon see how right my choice was. Seeing that the 3 vice presidents had agreed not to cause trouble after his persuasion, Zhuo Qiushi smiled and said this, then got up and walked towards the door. His era has finally come to an end. It's really not easy to have made it this far. Finally, I don't have to face those 3 monsters anymore. Thinking of this, Zhuo Qiushi quickened his pace and disappeared through the door in the blink of an eye. Let's leave it at that for now. Although I like being an official, I don't like meddling in things. Let the student council continue to operate according to his previous rules. Chen Mobai spoke very frankly, and Hua Zijing and the other 2 nodded in agreement. This was also what Zhuo Qiushi had agreed to before he left. By the way, President, this is the list of participants and the schedule for this exchange meeting. Please take a look. Hua Zijing handed over a document which was originally waiting for Zhuo Qiushi to stamp it, but the latter ran away, so Chen Mobai had to make the decision. He glanced at it and noticed that some names were highlighted in red. These are the people chosen by the academy, and they must be brought along. Hua Zijing's words were very tactful, and Chen Mobai saw his own and Meng Huinger's names in them. In other words, these are all people with connections, and the student union can't touch them. Chen Mobai, who was not particularly interested at first, perked up instantly when he saw the page of the program schedule. "Is this the program list for the Millennium Celebration? How did you get it?" The show's director is Teacher Bayan, the leader of our Taoist Academy. He asked us to help maintain order during the performance, and most of our student council members will have to go out. That's not what Chen Mobai cares about. He didn't object to the entire student council being mobilized. The main reason was that he saw the opening of the Millennium Celebration program, which was Meng Huanger's solo performance of Like a Dream. "Do you rehearse every day?" He asked a question. "Recently, it's been every day, but as the Millennium Celebration of Chicheng Cave Heaven approaches, the frequency may be gradually reduced to avoid any accidents. As the newly appointed Student Council President, this is the first thing I need to do." The Millennium Celebration program will also be attended by senior figures from the Immortal sect and student groups from the other 3 major academies. It concerns the overall image of the academies, so I feel it is necessary to do this as well as possible. After reading it, Chen Mobai closed the document in his hand and said something earnestly. Should we consult the president?" Hua Zijing was a little unsure and asked with a frown. "During the program rehearsals, I personally led the team to maintain order." Chen Mobai revealed his plan. He should be able to master merging with the divine after listening to Meng Huanger sing a few more times. Hua Zijing and the other 2 didn't think much of it, assuming that the new leader wanted to set an example by demonstrating himself in the most difficult and tiring position to win their favor. "This matter was originally my responsibility, but since the president is willing, I can take a break." Shen Inwu nodded and immediately gave up his seat. When Chen Mobai returned to his wooden house, it was still bathed in dazzling rainbow light. At this point, Meng Huanger had completely abandoned any pretense of composure and immediately sent a message. "Didn't you say you were going to challenge Zhuoqiu Shi to a magical duel? How did you become the student council president?" "He lost a move in our magical duel, but was impressed by my demeanor and believed that among the students of the academy, only I was qualified to succeed him. I initially didn't intend to accept, but he earnestly persuaded me, saying that if I didn't step down from the mountain, no one in the academy could rival the top scholar of the other academies. Alas, the reputation of the academy rests on my shoulders. If I didn't shoulder such a heavy responsibility, wouldn't I be failing the earnest teachings of my teachers? I had no choice but to accept it." Based on facts, Chen Mobai made a small but not excessive boast about himself. However, Meng Huanger's next sentence made him feel greatly deceived, realizing that he had been tricked by Zhuoqiu Shi. Indeed, in the past 2 years, Zhuoqiu Shi, relying on his higher cultivation level, barely managed to suppress the sect leader of Jumeng Dao Academy, Ling Daoshi of Bushan Dao Academy, and Taishi Shu of Kunpeng Dao Academy. This year it's said that all 3 of them have broken through to the 7th level of foundation establishment, and since he himself hasn't improved, he definitely can't defeat them. Seeing you, a fighting genius, he used a tactic of retreating to advance, thus extricating himself from the fray. End of this chapter. Chapter 275, Wandering God Controlling Qi. Chapter 275, Wandering God Controlling Qi. Chicheng Grand Theater. In the center of the front row, Chen Mobai rested his cheek on his right fist, squinting as he listened to Meng Huanger's heavenly voice during rehearsals on stage. Beside him were Bayan Yiking, Hua Zijing, and other student council members. Chen Mobai is a man of his word. Although after chatting with Meng Huanger, she realized that she might have been tricked by Zhuoqiu Shi, since she had already agreed, there was no reason for her to back down. So, for the past few days, he personally led the capable members of the student council to respond to Bayan Yiking's call and come to Chicheng Cave to help. As expected, the fusion of spirits, which was still a little short of completion, was finally completed amidst Meng Huanger's healing singing. Within the purple mansion sea of consciousness, a jade parasol tree with 2 branches and more than 20 green buds took root. This represents the manifestation of Chen Mobai's divine consciousness, which can also be considered his destiny. If we were to practice the madra of the same kindness and use a formless puppet to deduce its meaning, this would be the appearance of the object of his practice. It's a pity that the fourth-tier jade phoenix tree in Dangxia City was taken by Master Shiking. Otherwise, he might have really considered switching to the Cantong Qi. After all, Zhongli Tianyu is a good example right in front of us. If he can really transform the jade Wudong into his own companion, he might be able to achieve foundation establishment perfection in a short time without needing the longevity tree fruit. However, this is just wishful thinking, since cultivating the Cantong Qi requires even more talent than the Chunyang scroll. Chen Mobai had used the formless puppet to deduce once that his compatibility with this divine transformation technique was very ordinary. The pure Yang scroll is still more suitable for him. After all, as long as he has spirit stones, he can gradually upgrade his fire spirit root to a heavenly spirit root without having to worry about any vague compatibility or opportunities. After merging with the divine essence, the divine control technique has reached its final level, wandering the divine qi. At this level, one can use divine sense to interfere with the void and reality. Because after the split and fusion, Chen Mobai's consciousness seemed to have undergone a transformation, resulting in a qualitative improvement. With a thought, one of the green buds of the jade parasol tree rooted in the center of his purple mansion sea of consciousness broke off from the branch and transformed into an invisible thought blade. This is the God-controlling slash. When facing an opponent whose spiritual awareness is inferior to one's own, one can achieve an unconditional instant kill. Even if someone's spiritual realm is higher than one's own, this move can be used to disrupt the opponent's mind and find a weakness to defeat them. If I had mastered this move some time ago, I wouldn't have had to use all my cards against Zhuo Qiushi, and I would have barely managed to win. Chen Mobai counted carefully and found that the two branches of the jade phoenix tree now had 23 green buds, which meant that he could unleash 23 divine slashes. On the two branches, in addition to green buds, there are 2 Paulownia flowers and fruits. If Chen Mobai were to disregard his divine essence and use the flower fruit to unleash the divine slash, even a mid-foundation establishment cultivator might not be able to withstand it. However, his first thought was to continue splitting the jade phoenix tree. After all, the divine control technique can be practiced repeatedly. Chen Mobai decided to wait until he had adapted to the fusion of spirit and consciousness, and then, after his divine consciousness suddenly increased by 2 times, he would continue to split the green-tongue seedlings and divide his spirit into thoughts. Moreover, after his spiritual sense has increased, he can also consider refining the remaining half of the azure wood spirit heart. President. Just as he was pondering how to further improve his strength, a familiar voice came from outside, waking him from his meditation. Is rehearsal over? When Chen Mobai woke up and opened his eyes, he looked at the stage and found that performers were already packing up various props. You said you'd call me after rehearsal, so you're going on a date with a big star again. Hua Zijing said irritably. She wasn't originally on the list for this exchange meeting, but Chen Mobai thought that he wasn't familiar with the student council's manpower at all, and that it would be too tiring for him to personally lead the team, so he specifically asked her to help. At the same time, Xin Inwu, who was already in charge of this matter, was also brought along. When Bayan Yiking saw that the new president of the student council had come to help him with 2 vice presidents, he thought that Chen Mobai was giving him face, and he was very happy. However, after rehearsals ended that day, Chen Mobai went backstage and chatted with Meng Huinger for a bit. Bayan Yiking then realized that things were not as he had imagined. But he's just a teacher, and he wouldn't forcefully interfere in such matters. However, given Chen Mobai's somewhat ambiguous relationship with that heavenly spirit root in Dangxia City, Bayan Yiking still subtly reminded Meng Huinger that she should see through a man's true colors before she could make any sacrifices. During this time, the relationship between Chen Mobai and Meng Huinger has gradually warmed up from its previous indifference. Starting the day before yesterday, the two even started going out to eat together. However, both of them were a little reserved during their first meal together. Meng Huinger brought her senior brother Jiang Yuyuan, and Chen Mobai also brought Hua Zijing to fill in the gaps. The two's cautious interactions over the past few days have made Jiang Yuyuan and Hua Zijing, who are watching from the sidelines, feel quite awkward. Sure enough, it was time to eat again, and Hua Zijing was a little reluctant. She had no desire to be a third wheel. If it weren't for the handsome Jiang Yuyuan, she would never have done such a thing. I have something to do today, so I'll head back now. However, Chen Mobai had already merged with the divine, and the final level of the divine control technique, wandering the divine qi, was still somewhat unstable. He felt it would be better to go back and cultivate in seclusion for a few days. Hua Zijing had already put on makeup, and even let down her ponytail to create a beautiful hairstyle, all in order to leave a good impression on Jiang Yuyuan. As a result, Chen Mobai said he wouldn't make the appointment. What's wrong? Chen Mobai was a little confused, but at this moment he realized that Hua Zijing looked quite beautiful today. She was wearing a black dress that perfectly accentuated her tall and fair figure. Coupled with her long black hair that was loose and flowing over her shoulders, she looked several times more beautiful than when she was serious and dignified in the student council. Nothing. Hua Zijing could only grit her teeth and say 3 words. Oh, then I'll be going now. After these few days of personal observation, I feel that the two of you are capable enough to lead the team and complete the task of maintaining order. What do you mean by that? Before Shin Inwu could react, Hua Zijing understood and asked with wide eyes. I won't be coming starting tomorrow. Let me know on the day of the official exchange meeting, and I'll come back to show my face and meet with the representatives from the other Taoist academies. Chen Mobai stated his meaning quite frankly. The student council members on the side were all stunned. What happened? Didn't you come here to pursue Meng Huinger? Why did they suddenly retreat when they were so close to success? Even if someone gets bored with something new so quickly, it shouldn't be this fast. Regardless of what they thought, after achieving his goal, Chen Mobai continued his cultivation life, which revolved around Wanbao Cave and Xiaonan Mountain. He didn't even return to the little cabin he rented. You rejected him. 2 days later, Jiang Yuyuan, who had not seen Chen Mobai again in the lower position, asked Meng Huinger beside him with a puzzled look. The expression on the latter's fair face was the most complicated he had ever seen in his life. There are feelings of resentment, sorrow, bitterness, confusion, frustration, and so on. She didn't know why this person had suddenly given up after only 3 or 5 days of pursuing her. Is it because the progress she provided wasn't fast enough? If I had known, I should have gone to the appointment alone from the beginning. How can this person be so impatient? Chen Mobai was completely unaware of the complicated thoughts of Meng Huinger and the others. After stabilizing his wandering spirit and controlling Qi realm, he excitedly took out the half of the sealed jade wood spirit heart from his storage bag. The blue solution inside the glass bottle was frozen into a block by Yan Bingxuan, resembling a huge sapphire. At the very center of the sapphire is half of the jade heart. To ensure that no one would disturb him, Chen Mobai specially rented a cultivation room in the Taoist Academy. Having had the experience of absorbing it once before, he was not worried at all about refining this spiritual object. However, due to the triple seal, extra care is needed to ensure that the efficacy of the azure wood spirit heart is not diminished. Fortunately, he had mastered the divine control technique, and his spiritual awareness had increased, allowing him to perform the unsealing process with sufficient detail. Following the unsealing incantation left to him by Qingnu and Yan Bingxuan, Chen Mobai began to dissolve the power that the 2 women had used to seal the jade spirit heart. Time flies. After completely absorbing the azure wood spirit heart, Chen Mobai opened his eyes. If someone were in the cultivation room, they would see that there was an invisible and formless blade in his eyes, which was exceptionally captivating. He sensed his own purple mansion sea of consciousness, which had originally occupied about a quarter of the space due to the growth of the green Paulownia seedling, and now it was expanding again. that jade-green parasol tree with 2 branches, can now only occupy 1/6 of the space in the purple mansion sea of consciousness. After checking the information, Chen Mobai discovered that his current space in his purple mansion sea of consciousness was comparable to that of cultivators at the 4th or 5th level of foundation establishment. In other words, during the early stages of foundation establishment, he was able to elevate his divine sense to the mid-stage of foundation establishment by refining the entire azure wood spirit heart and opening up his purple mansion. However, at this point, only the purple mansion, a vessel for spiritual energy, has been expanded. The divine sense has not yet reached its limit. But immediately, Chen Mobai plucked a flower and fruit from his jade parasol tree, which had taken the form of his divine consciousness, and planted it on the other side of his purple mansion. Dewdrops fell from the bamboo, and a tender bud slowly emerged. Once this sapling of the Chinese parasol tree grows up, he will be able to repeat the process of merging with the divine and returning to oneness, and his divine consciousness will increase dramatically. As expected, the 2 pools of clear eye bamboo spirit dew that Wang Xingyu refined this time were free of poison. He handed them over to Chen Mobai with a sigh of relief, saying that if he failed again this time, he would have inner demons even if he went to foundation establishment. Chen Mobai felt that Wang Xingyu's mentality was wrong. The alchemists in the Tian realm all confidently stated that the employer would bear all the losses if the alchemy failed, and if it was successful, they would take another 20% or 30% as the furnace opening fee. However, it is precisely because of this that the alchemists in the Heavenly River realm are all incredibly daring. They dare to refine any kind of elixir, and after it's finished, they don't care about the amount of poison in it. As long as it doesn't kill anyone, they consider the mission complete and the elixir refining successful. If Chen Mobai hadn't stopped them, all the spirit wines that Zhuo Ming and the 2 disciples from the alchemy department had experimented with would have been sold in the shop by his little apprentice. He pleaded and begged, until he glared at her and scolded her, before Zhu Ming reluctantly fed the spirit wine to the spirit rats that Liu Wenbai had bought from the spirit beast department. After this incident, Chen Mobai established a rule. All newly produced spirit wines must be fed with spirit rats for more than a year to ensure there are no side effects before they can be sold in his shop in Shenmu City. Although Zhuo Ming and Liu Wenbai did not understand, their master was like heaven in the Heavenly River realm, and they could only obey orders. After dealing with this matter, Chen Mobai was still concerned about the Kongming stone mine, but the Shenmu sect kept this matter top secret, so he could only visit Yan Jinai. Yan Jinai did indeed know some inside information. After all, she was the discoverer of Lonely Soul Ridge and a direct descendant of ancestor Zhou, so many things were not kept from her. Although the void stone vein in Lonely Soul Ridge is not as good as the one in the 5 Elements sect, it is far superior to the one on the top of Shaking Mountain. It should be a medium-sized vein. Ancestor Zhou even took the time to go there. After hearing this, Chen Mobai became even more curious. Is the void stone vein in Lonely Soul Ridge already being mined? I don't know about that. Ancestor Zhou is paying close attention to this matter, and the Hall Master of the Hall of Rewards is personally in charge. However, many of our foundation establishment elders in the Divine Wood sect came from the 5 Elements sect when they split off. We don't know how many spies from the other 3 branches are among them. If the commotion is too big, it will be impossible to keep it a secret. It should be that the Minister of the Spirit Vein Department is conducting small-scale mining with a few trusted people. Hearing this, Chen Mobai nodded slightly. The fact that they were willing to tell him this shows that the Shenmu sect truly considers him one of their own. However, it's understandable since he has a clean background. From Qi refining to foundation establishment, his advancement has been under the watchful eyes of the Divine Wood sect. Coupled with his exceptional talent, he is destined to be invincible below the golden core stage in the future. Therefore, the sect's upper echelons have already regarded him as one of the future leaders. After chatting with Yan Jinai for a while and getting the information he wanted, Chen Mobai said goodbye and left. After mastering the divine slash, he no longer had any short-term goals for his cultivation. Now, besides his usual daily practice of magic and swordsmanship, he uses spirit stones to advance the progress of his pure yang dharma body. Sometimes, he really thought about just taking the 3 treasures of foundation establishment and triggering the pure yang scroll to establish his foundation. He doesn't know if he has the opportunity to attain the foundation establishment stage. Just as Chen Mobai was getting so bored that he started comparing the sealed artifact spheres he had seen with the Wanbao map, Hua Zijing finally sent a message. The important figures from the immortal sect have arrived. This means that the Chicheng Dongshan University Alliance exchange meeting has finally begun this year. You look quite good in this outfit. In the student council's 3-story villa, on the 3rd floor, which belonged exclusively to the president, Chen Mobai, with Hua Zijing's help, put on the red and black robe that the weapon crafting department had hastily woven in the meantime. Because he is often in the Tian realm, Chen Mobai usually dresses in ancient style, and his black hair has long since grown out. Wearing this black robe with red patterns, he looked like a villainous young master from an ancient costume drama. He was both elegant and dignified, and these 2 different temperaments were perfectly integrated in him, which made Hua Zijing, who was used to seeing Zuo Qiushi's strong and majestic appearance, feel refreshed. This guy actually looks kind of good in a suit. End of this chapter. Chapter 276, Little Red Sky. Chapter 276, Little Red Sky. The important figure from the immortal sect was named Gong'a Jixu. He is one of the 2 deputy hall masters of the Immortal Affairs Hall, and may even become the master of the immortal sect in the future. The overall system of the immortal sect is very interesting. Among the 3 main halls, the Hall of Immortal Affairs is in charge of managing the land and rivers, and is the highest authority of the immortal sect. The Master of the Immortal Affairs Hall also holds the title of Master of the Immortal Sect. Therefore, the Deputy Hall Master of the Immortal Affairs Hall can be considered a major figure in the immortal sect, second only to the 3 Hall Masters. Gong'a Jixu, a graduate of the Taiyuan Academy, possesses the Golden Core cultivation level and is not yet 200 years old. He is in his prime, in the throes of youth and strength. If he successfully forms his nascent soul, there is a high probability that he will succeed the current Immortal Affairs Hall Master, who is nearly 800 years old and close to retirement. Unfortunately, in a resource-poor place like Earth Star, the difficulty of forming a nascent soul is practically insurmountable. Gong'a Jixu was a prodigy. In his youth, he gave up the opportunity to attend the Bushan Dao Academy because the Taiyuan Academy was closer to his home. At the age of 33, he achieved the completion of foundation establishment. In order to obtain resources for core formation, he joined the Immortal Affairs Hall, moved between multiple departments, and spent 60 years serving the people at the grassroots level. Finally, he obtained the Golden Elixir Jade Rejuvenation Pill and successfully formed his core in one go. Unfortunately, after forming the core, there is still the process of forming the nascent soul. The 3 kinds of spiritual medicines for forming an infant in the immortal sect, the infant nourishing pill, the infant cultivation pill, and the infant transformation pill, are all priceless treasures that cannot be purchased with merit points. The most orthodox way to obtain it is to serve the people and have your governance level recognized by the entire immortal sect. In that case, you can obtain the nascent soul elixir from the immortal sect's treasury. Gong'a Jixu was a practitioner of this orthodox path. But gradually, he found that he didn't have enough time. The golden elixir has a lifespan of 8 jiazi, or 480 years. The success rate is undoubtedly the highest if one forms the nascent soul before their essence, energy, and spirit decline from their peak. Gong'a Jixu has already turned 200 years old. Although he has many longevity pills, he only has a maximum of 100 years left to form his nascent soul. He ruled the immortal sect for over 100 years, and all he received was a single infant nourishing pill. The remaining 2 types of nascent soul elixirs are already too late to be obtained through orthodox methods. Although there have been lucky individuals in the history of the immortal sects who successfully formed their nascent soul using only a nascent soul pill, Gong'ai Jixu still wanted to be more fully prepared. 5 years ago, the Boundary Gate, the supreme treasure passed down through generations of immortals, began to fluctuate. This indicates that another world is moving closer to Earth. Therefore, after consulting with the three palace masters, Gong'ai Jixu began preparations for starting a war. The immortal sects no longer have enough resources to refine nascent soul pills and nascent soul transformation pills, so they can only hope that they can be found in the newly discovered other worlds. However, although the Gateway has detected the existence of the other world, it is not yet possible to completely open a passage between the two worlds due to the distance between them. According to the calculations of the Star-Gazing Academy, it will take about 100 years for the two realms to completely converge. A century later, it was precisely the last peak of Gong'ai Jixu's career. Not only him, but many golden core cultivators in the Kaiyuan Hall who were struggling with a lack of nascent soul elixirs also saw this opportunity to advance further. Even the nascent soul cultivators who sat atop the immortal gate were awakened by the fluctuations of the Boundary Gate. After all, above the nascent soul stage, there is the deity transformation stage. Everyone wants to reach a higher level. However, the true strength of the other world detected by the interdimensional gate needs to be confirmed as soon as possible before the two worlds converge. If they become too powerful, the immortal sects can only conceal their tracks, hoping not to be discovered by the other side. If one's strength is average but one has abundant resources, then one will definitely have to launch a war. So, starting 5 years ago, the long peaceful immortal sects began to consciously cultivate the fighting spirit of the next generation. Gong'ai Jixu had gathered hundreds of top geniuses from various fields within the immortal sect over the years to revive the closed little crimson heaven, all for this purpose. Before leading his team to Chicheng Cave Heaven, Chen Mobai made a special trip to visit Chi Yucheng, who told him about the main policy directions of the immortal sect in recent years. When he heard terms like otherworld, gateway, and capture, his eyes and face revealed undisguised shock. However, a normal person would probably be even more shocked than Chen Mobai upon hearing these secrets, so Chi Yucheng didn't pay any attention to them. Chen Mobai was wondering if this other world captured by the gate was the heavenly river realm. If that's the case, wouldn't he have successfully infiltrated the enemy camp ahead of time? But he was very successful in the heavenly river realm. If he really faced a war between the two realms, wouldn't all his efforts over the years have been wasted? Moreover, the heavenly river realm has seen many ascended cultivators, and no one knows whether there are still connections between the lower and upper realms. If, at the very last moment of creating a world, the cultivators who ascended to the mortal realm descend to the lower realm, the immortal sects may suffer severe consequences. We still need to find a way to determine whether what was captured by the Boundary Gate is actually the heavenly river realm. What is Little Red Sky? However, his thoughts and words were completely different. In order to avoid Chi Yucheng noticing his unusual behavior, Chen Mobai asked another question that interested him. It is a virtual reality world, a masterpiece created by the first master of the immortal sect when he was practicing the void realm. You can project your power into it, experience various trials, and also practice against each other to improve your combat awareness and level. The immortal sects have this kind of thing. Why didn't they bring it out before? Chen Mobai expressed great confusion about this. This thing is equivalent to a 6th-tier spiritual treasure. Once activated, it requires a huge amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth every moment. Immortal sects only activate it before wars of the level of world creation in order to improve the overall combat level of the masses. Chi Yucheng, as a veteran golden core cultivator of the immortal sect and a former rotating member of the Kaiyuan Hall, was one of the upper echelons of the immortal sect. Therefore, he was very clear about Gong'ai Jixu, Zhao Chishan, and Jimin. When his apprentice Chen Mobai came to ask, he didn't hide anything and told him everything he knew. After the little crimson heaven opens, the spiritual energy supplied to the general public of the immortal sects will decrease by one level, but the one who suffers the most is still our dance weapon academy. Qi Yucheng sighed. He had already received a notice that from now on, opening fifth-order spiritual veins would be prohibited on Chicheng Mountain. Because the operation and use of Little Red Heaven requires a huge amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth, and among the 4 fifth-order spiritual veins of the immortal sect, only the spiritual energy from Red City Mountain meets the needs of Little Red Heaven. So when he heard that Gong Ajixu was coming, he had already guessed this. But when Qi Yucheng actually received the official document from the immortal sect, he still felt somewhat heavy-hearted. Upon hearing this, Chen Mobai's expression turned indignant. But he immediately realized that a fifth-order spiritual vein was not something a foundation establishment cultivator like himself could use, so he only verbally condemned the immortal sect. Won't the dean step in and object? The fifth-order spiritual vein of Chicheng Mountain undoubtedly belongs to the dean of the Dance Weapon Academy. If he, as a nascent soul cultivator, did not agree, the immortal sects would not forcibly requisition the spiritual veins of Chicheng Mountain. The dean is also past the halfway mark of his lifespan. There is hope of becoming a god after creating a world. Although it is slim, it is still better than waiting for the illusory divine song. After hearing Qi Yucheng's words, Chen Mobai looked enlightened. It turns out that the dean also supported this war. No wonder he didn't even show his face when Gong Ajixu requisitioned the fifth-order spiritual vein of Chicheng Mountain. What do I need to do in the lesser crimson heaven? Chen Mobai asked the question, and Qi Yucheng nodded, giving him a request. The rankings for Zio Chishan's duel will be displayed. As the current top disciple of our Dance Weapon Academy, you can only be number 1. Teacher, it's not that I lack confidence in myself, but I've only just established my foundation. I can beat Zuo Kiyoshi, but if I encounter Lan Haitian or someone at the Golden Core or Nascent Soul stage, even 10 of me combined wouldn't be a match for them. Chen Mobai made a face, indicating that he couldn't do it. Don't worry, Little Crimson Sky has a perfect matchmaking system. You will only encounter opponents of similar strength, and you will not be challenged by opponents of a higher level. So, the strongest opponent I've been matched against is only at the 3rd level of foundation establishment. Isn't this just bullying? Chen Mobai stared wide-eyed, his face filled with disbelief. He wasn't trying to brag. He simply couldn't believe that any foundation establishment level 3 cultivator from any immortal sect could withstand a single sword strike from him. That's right. Of course, if you win too many matches, Little Crimson Heaven will increase your hidden score, and you might be matched with opponents at the 4th to 6th level of foundation establishment. But even if you lose at that point, you've already brought glory to our academy. Qi Yucheng knew his disciple's fighting ability. Under the sword's rainbow light, he was invincible against those in the early foundation establishment stage. It was indeed a bit of bullying. However, even in the mid-foundation establishment stage, there are still some individuals with profound foundations and extraordinary talents whose sword light may not be able to suppress them. But as he said, as long as Chen Mobai can exert his normal strength, even if he loses to a foundation establishment level 6 cultivator, he will still be bringing glory to the Dao Academy. Teacher, I feel that those below the 7th level of foundation establishment are not challenging enough and are not conducive to honing my combat skills. Moreover, my purpose in becoming the student council president is to spar and exchange skills with the top students from the other 3 major academies. It is a bit of a pity that we are separated by our cultivation levels and cannot test our skills across the world. Chen Mobai said something that left Qi Yucheng speechless. You should deal with all the early and middle stages of foundation establishment first. Besides, once the 3 of them enter the lesser crimson heaven, they probably won't have time to deal with you. Qi Yucheng's words left Chen Mobai very puzzled. However, once he arrived at Chicheng Cave with Hua Zijing and other student council members, he immediately understood the reason. This is the central plaza of the cave heaven. The huge screen is divided into 9 sections, some displaying rankings, and others showing battles taking place in the lesser Crimson Heaven. Among them, the three central grid screen display the chief disciples of the three major academies. In the upper right corner of the three-player battle screen, the number of matches over 100 is displayed. This means that at least 300 late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators who obtained beta test slots have launched a matchmaking challenge against the top cultivators of the three major academies. There are probably many Foundation establishment stage 9 cultivators here, and there are also likely some at the Foundation establishment perfection pseudocore stage. Everyone wants to become famous. Challenging the top scholars of the four major academies is undoubtedly the most eye-catching event. If one can win, one can boast that one's talent surpasses theirs, and it can even lead to doubts about the prestige of the four major academies. No wonder Qi Yucheng said that the chief disciples of the other three major academies didn't have time to deal with him, because there were just too many people lining up to challenge them. Mobai, you finally arrived. Bian Yiking walked over with Jiang Yuyuan and Meng Huinger. When they saw him, they visibly breathed a sigh of relief. When Gong Aijixu arrived, Bian Yiking led Meng Huinger and other artists to perform a welcoming song at the Grand Theater. Chen Mobai was not interested in such things and stayed at home in seclusion. Once the lesser Crimson Heaven was activated, the chief disciples of the other three major academies were present, and Gong Aijixu immediately distributed the quotas to them. These three prodigies, naturally, had no reason to back down and have already begun to face a relentless barrage of attacks from a large number of users. Bian Yiking, as the leader of the Wuqi Dao Academy, was also given 20 spots by Gong Aijixu. Many members of the student council have already been admitted, and even Zhuo Qiashi, who had already graduated, came over and got one. However, it doesn't matter whether they are there or not, because the only one missing from the list of the four major academies of the immortal sect is the Dance Weapon Academy. Since Chen Mobai didn't come yesterday, and some people have found out that he only just established his foundation last year and is only at the first level of cultivation, rumors have already started to circulate. Fear of war, retreat, cowardice. The 5,000-year-old reputation of the Dance Weapon Academy is about to be ruined in this person's hands. Hua Zijing selectively said some things, originally intending to provoke Chen Mobai, but the latter remained calm and unmoved. When he first started typing online, these words seemed rather childish. Didn't Senior Zhuoqiu also get in? How was his performance? Chen Mobai didn't rush into Zhao Qishan. Instead, he inquired about Zhuo Qiashi's situation. Not bad, 5 games in a row, 3 wins and 2 losses, barely maintaining a positive record. Hua Zijing was extremely loyal to her former leader. Not only did she provide Zhuo Qiashi with the beta test account, but she also kept a close eye on the latter's performance after he joined Zhao Qishan. When Chen Mobai asked, she knew the details like the back of her hand. He knew everything about the match, including which opponent he faced, his foundation establishment level, his preferred cultivation techniques, the reasons for his victory or defeat, and so on. Sai, it's a good thing he ran fast. Otherwise, as the chief of the Dance Weapon Academy, how could he have such a record? It would have been a disgrace to our academy. Hua Zijing was speaking with great enthusiasm when she heard Chen Mobai's words, and her face turned pale and then red. On the other side, Minjiu, Shen Rinyu, and other student council officers either lowered their heads or looked up at the sky, pretending not to hear. They dared to say that, but Chen Mobai dared not agree. However, deep down, the student council members agreed with Chen Mobai's statement. After all, the top students of the 3 major academies have fought 10 battles since yesterday, each one a resounding victory. In comparison, Zhuo Qiashi's record is somewhat embarrassing. President, why don't you go in and give it a try? After all, as the current chief, the academy needs you to bring glory to it. When she said the last 2 words, Hua Zijing gritted her teeth. Chen Mobai, however, looked completely undeterred. Upholding the glory of the Taoist temple is our inescapable duty. End of this chapter. Chapter 277, The True Lineage of Chicheng in Chenyang. Chapter 277, The True Lineage of Chicheng in Chenyang. Chen Mobai's righteous and awe-inspiring demeanor made Hua Zijing and other student council officers feel ashamed. Even Bayan Yiking, a seasoned master of the art of sound, was taken aback. This boy's heartfelt sense of honor for the dance academy made even his teacher feel somewhat ashamed. Behind Bayan Yiking, Meng Huinger looked at Chen Mobai with a hint of resentment in her eyes, but upon hearing this, she couldn't help but think that perhaps it was because of the immense pressure of bearing the honor of the Tao Academy that he had to give up his love for her. "Look, Master Ling has been defeated." At that moment, a commotion broke out in the square. Chen Mobai and the others immediately looked up at the large screen. In the center, Ling Dayashi, the chief of the Bushan Tao Academy, had a sword wound in his chest and was slowly disappearing with a frown. In the battle within the Lesser Crimson Heaven, since both sides are projections, there is no need to worry about casualties, and both sides can freely use their most powerful and ruthless spells. Of course, this only applies to spells, because external magical artifacts cannot be brought into the illusory world of Little Red Heaven. It seems that there are still capable people in other academies of the immortal sect. I thought I would have to wait until I went up there before I could give the chief of the 3 major academies a defeat. Chen Mobai's words, spoken without concealing his tone, immediately drew the attention of students from other academies watching in the square. Everyone wanted to know who was so arrogant as to say such a thing. But when they saw the boy in the red and black robes of a dancer surrounded by the student council members, they couldn't help but gasp. The last chief disciple of the 4 major academies has finally appeared. Is it Zuo Kyoshi? Zuo Kyoshi is a thing of the past. After he graduated, the new chief of the Dance Weapon Academy is a freshman foundation establishment cultivator who has only been enrolled for 5 years. Wouldn't that be disastrous? With the Little Crimson Heaven opening in our Crimson City Cave Heaven, the Dance Weapon Academy, being the local power, will be left without Zuo Kyoshi, and the chief disciples of the other 3 academies will be left to swagger around. What do you know? Although Zuo Kyoshi has graduated, he entered the Lesser Crimson Heaven yesterday. Without the help of the Dharma artifact, he is only a mid-level late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. That's even worse, then you've lost your excuse. Upon hearing the passers-by's words, Hua Zijing's fair and smooth forehead bulged with veins. If it weren't for the fact that he represented the Dance Weapon Academy, he probably would have already retorted on the spot. Didn't you see that the chief of the Heaven Mending Academy has just been defeated? It's not surprising that former chairman Zuokyu lost. What is this person's background? At this moment, Chen Mobai pointed with great interest to the person who had defeated Ling Dayashi. He saw that the person's face was calm, and his sharp eyes under his brows were radiating unprecedented confidence. Indeed, to be able to defeat the chief of the Heaven Mending Academy in a head-on confrontation, and in full view of everyone, is an unparalleled honor for anyone. This glory can also give the victor unparalleled confidence. Sima Xingyu, the top student of Chenyang Academy 7 years ago. The one who answered him was Minjiu. You know him? Chen Mobai was very surprised. 7 years ago, I had just joined the student council and attended that year's exchange meeting with the then president. Sima Xingyu was already shining brightly back then, only not as good as the top student of the 4 major academies at the time. After hearing Minjiu's words, Chen Mobai nodded slightly. The screen displayed Sima Xingyu's cultivation level, Foundation Establishment Level 8. This person also has the foundation of the Pure Yang Scroll and is also a sword cultivator. He should be practicing the Yuan Yang sword technique, which is said to be second only to the immortal sect sword technique. Master Ling has only just broken through to the 7th level of Foundation Establishment this year. Although he is already an exceptionally talented person as the chief of the Heaven Mending Tao Academy. However, it is understandable that he lost to Sima Xingyu, whose cultivation level was higher and whose techniques were more domineering. Taishi Shu has also been defeated. At that moment, Another focus of attention, the chief of Kunpeng Academy, a girl with an ordinary appearance and elegant demeanor, frowned slightly, looking at her right arm, which had been severed at the elbow, in disbelief. Opposite her was a bald man with a full, red beard and no eyebrows. He stood arrogantly in midair, and with a slash of his right sword finger, Tai Shishu's magnetic field completely collapsed under the extremely domineering Yuan-Yang sword energy, and his whole body was split in two. He was defeated even more thoroughly than Master Ling. After defeating Tai Shishu, the red-bearded bald man laughed loudly and arrogantly. "And who is this fierce general?" Chen Mobai, however, asked with great interest. "Although I have never met him, I heard his legend when I was a child. If I remember correctly, this person should be Xiaohu Weihuan, the chief student of Chunyang Academy 20 years ago, known as the Red-Bearded Swordsman." Xiaohu Weihuan, a nice name. Chen Mobai muttered to himself, looking at Xiaohu Weihuan, who had taken up the center of the screen, with an expression of admiration. His cultivation level was displayed in the upper left corner, Foundation Establishment Level 9. However, based on what Chen Mobai saw, he felt that the person who defeated Tai Shishu with that sword might have already reached the peak of Foundation Establishment. Although as the top student of the Academy, reaching the 7th level of Foundation Establishment during his time at the Academy was already a remarkable achievement. However, when faced with bullies like those from Chunyang Academy, they could only swallow their defeats. After all, the combination of the pure Yang scroll and the Yuan-Yang sword technique is already top tier even among the 4 major academies. Then, only the sect leader of Jumeng Academy is left. As Chen Mobai spoke, he looked at the only remaining disciple of the Dao Academy who had attracted the attention of everyone else on the large screen in the square. His opponent was also from Chunyang Academy, but the sect leader's spring god technique was best suited for endurance. Even though his opponent's realm was higher than his, he was unable to finish the battle quickly. And so the stalemate continued. Even so, the top scholars of the 3 major academies lost face in front of Chunyang Academy and lost their invincible momentum from the previous 10 battles and 10 decisions. In an instant, everyone in the 36 Grotto Heavens and 72 blessed lands of the immortal sect who were watching the grand opening of the Little Crimson Heaven was discussing it animatedly. At this moment, Xiaohu Weihuan, standing in the center of the large screen, said something that made everyone from the Dance Weapon Academy blush. The correct statement is, the true lineage of Chicheng lies in Chunyang. Chen Mobai, who had initially appreciated his gaze, suddenly changed his attitude. This person has a nice name, but a bad personality. After saying this with disgust, Chen Mobai asked Bayan Yiking how he could enter the Little Crimson Heaven. "I have 20 spots given to me by Gong Ajixu, and I've already registered you, the chief candidate for them," Bayan Yiking said, and asked Chen Mobai to take out his student ID so that he could activate it. The Little Crimson Heaven has just opened and is still in the closed beta phase. Everyone who projects in is real name verified. After you enter, you will be marked as the chief of the Dance Weapon Academy, just like the other 3, and will be the target of everyone's attacks. After activating it, Bayan Yiking's eyes were filled with worry. The 3 top academy leaders, who were invincible just the day before, have now suffered 2 defeats and 1 draw. This is only because Little Crimson Heaven has just been opened to academies and schools. If it were to be fully open to all the 36 Grotto Heavens and 72 blessed lands of the immortal sects in the future, there would be countless late-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators hidden in universities, government agencies, and enterprises. In order to prove themselves and make a name for themselves, these people will first challenge their opponents, who will definitely be the chief disciples of the 4 major academies. "Don't worry, I won't be in the late Foundation Establishment stage." Chen Mobai, however, seemed completely indifferent. After hearing his words, Bayan Yiking was stunned for a moment, then realized what Xiao Chishan's matching mechanism meant, and his expression suddenly became clear. But soon after, he started to have a toothache again. Among the 4 major academies, only the chief disciple of their dance weapon academy is not in the late foundation establishment stage, which is somewhat embarrassing if word gets out. If Zuokyu hasn't graduated yet. As soon as the thought crossed his mind, Bayan Yiking remembered Zuo Kyushi's somewhat mediocre performance after being projected into the projected area due to the lack of magical artifacts. He felt that it would be quite good for Chen Mobai to be the chief. At least Chen Mobai was able to sweep through the early and middle stages of foundation establishment. As long as you don't get matched with someone in the late foundation establishment stage and you haven't lost, you can always have an excuse. Just as Bayan Yiking was thinking this, Chen Mobai had already finished the projection. Others stood in the square of Chicheng Cave Heaven outside, but felt as if their mind and spirit were split in two, as if another version of themselves had entered a dream. Although they could not feel their hands and feet, they were able to use any spells and techniques they had cultivated. After he projected the image, the middle section of the large screen, which had been blacked out after Ling Dayashi lost, suddenly showed Chen Mobai's figure wearing a red and black robe with a dance weapon. His identification and basic information are displayed in the upper left corner. Certified Contemporary Chief by Wuki Daeyuan. Foundation Building Level 1. It was like a lighthouse in the dark night, starlight in the night sky, instantly attracting the early and mid-stage foundation establishment cultivators who were already projected on Little Crimson Heaven, but whose cultivation was not high enough to match the other three chief cultivators of the three major academies. In just a moment, Hua Zijing saw that the number of matches in the upper right corner, which was originally 0, suddenly surged to 100 plus, the same as the previous three chief academies. Is the Dance Weapon Academy out of people? Why did they send out someone who just established their foundation? With the fifth-order spiritual veins being requisitioned by the immortal sects, it's possible that Chunyang Academy will truly overtake us and cause us to fall from the top 4. I wonder who the first lucky one will be. Hearing the murmurs from the square, Meng Huanger felt a complex mix of emotions. She was both angry that outsiders saw through Chen Mobai so clearly, and hoping that he would truly be defeated, making this scumbag who had toyed with her girlish heart suffer a terrible setback. At this time, the chief disciple of Jumeng Academy, relying on his thick blood and abundant spiritual power, finally wore down the foundation establishment cultivator of Chunyang Academy and became the only chief disciple of the academy with a perfect record. After this battle, Zongzi did not click to match again, but instead chose to exit Little Red Heaven. Unlike the 10 opponents I easily defeated yesterday, today's team was clearly well prepared. We need to carefully consider our tactics and strategies to try our best to maintain our undefeated record. Thus, in Little Crimson Heaven, only the chief of a Taoist academy remained. Chen Mobai. In the dormitory of Liuguang Academy, Shi Wanyu, who was watching Zio Chishan's highlights with her roommates, blushed slightly the moment she saw Chen Mobai. He has actually become the top student of the Dance Weapon Academy. Soon, under the watchful eyes of all the cultivators in the immortal sect, Chen Mobai clicked the match button in the upper right corner. With a flash of light, the first lucky person appeared before everyone. Chen Mobai looked at his opponent and couldn't help but show a look of surprise. It turns out it was someone I'd met before. It's me. Ha 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 ha, heaven has opened its eyes. I never thought I would have this opportunity to bestow upon you, the chief of the Dance Weapon Academy, the most miserable defeat in front of billions of immortal beings. With his buzz-cut, black vest and trousers, revealing his muscular arms and shoulders, and tattoos, he looked incredibly tough and dangerous. Congratulations, lucky one. What's your name again, brah? It's Wengsheng. The young man with the buzz cut was none other than Wengsheng, the one who had been humiliated by Chen Mobai on the train when he was admitted to the Dance Weapon Academy. He had actually reached the foundation establishment stage as well. However, considering that he is a student of Chunyang Academy, his talent must be outstanding. It is understandable that he was able to reach the foundation establishment stage after 5 years. All right, I've got it. After all, you were the first opponent I ever defeated in Little Red Heaven. Your name will be remembered in history along with my legend." After saying this, Chen Mobai raised his right hand. He could have silently shattered Wenxing's consciousness with the divine slash, but that would have been too lacking in visual and auditory impact. What is he doing here? The goal is to make a name for ourselves throughout the world and restore the glory of the Dance Weapon Academy. Every battle must not only be won cleanly and decisively, but also leave all spectators in awe. Let everyone know that Chen Mobai, the chief of the Dance Weapon Academy, is invincible in the early and middle stages of foundation establishment. Keep talking tough. I'll turn you to ashes and make you disappear under the heaven-burning technique. However, Wenxing was even more confident in himself. It was unclear whether the entire Chunyang Academy had reached a consensus to replace the Wuki Dao Academy, or whether he simply disliked Chen Mobai and wanted to defeat him in public to wash away the shame of almost becoming a demon in his heart. "Dai burn the heavens." Wenxing spoke dismissively, but his actions showed great respect, immediately unleashing his most powerful burning heaven spirit fire. Then all he saw was a brilliant, deep purple sword light. As the sword light flashed, his projection on Zhao Chishin's avatar turned to ashes. He couldn't even withstand one sword strike. How is that possible? Standing on the other side of the square, Wenxing's true form stared wide-eyed in disbelief. Shi Wanyu from Liuguang Academy clenched her small, snow-white fist and cheered when she saw this scene. At this moment, Chen Mobai clicked the match button again. A second competitor has entered the fray. Everything is most memorable the first time. Chen Mobai didn't even bother to ask the name of this opponent. Just as the newcomer was about to speak, he was greeted by a brilliant, deep purple sword light. Another sword strike. The entire immortal sect was stunned when they saw their second opponent turn to ashes. Whoever can withstand one of my sword strikes may leave their name. End of this chapter. Chapter 278 Superior Methods. Chapter 278 Superior Methods. One sword. One sword. It was still a single sword strike. After 20 battles, Chen Mobai left Zhao Chishin looking utterly dejected. Among the foundation establishment cultivators matched in, some were from the 120 prefectures, some from the 10 great academies, and one was even from the heaven-mending Dao Academy. But no one could withstand a single blow from his sword. "I'll be waiting for you at the same time tomorrow." After saying this, Chen Mobai turned and left the square. The dozen or so student council members around him immediately followed. Because half of them were wearing the Taoist temple's red and black robes, they looked like a fiery red and black cloud as they walked together, giving people an unparalleled sense of oppression. A red and black robe for dancing. It's been a long time since I've seen such a scene. On a tall building to the right of the square, a middle-aged man with gray hair and a gentle face stroked his long beard, looking on with a sigh. He saw that the dense crowd on the street below had involuntarily parted as a dozen or so people from the Dance Weapon Academy moved, making way for them to pass. This child is good. Opposite him sat an old man dressed in a red and black robe, while a beautiful woman in a lady's dress was attentively brewing tea for the two of them. The middle-aged man was Gong Ajixu, the deputy head of the Immortal Affairs Hall. The old man was Hong Mengqi, the cave master of Chicheng Cave. He was also a graduate of the Wuki Dao Academy and had reached the core formation stage. However, he was older and of similar generation to Qi Yucheng. What do you think of Chunyang Academy's actions? After seeing Chen Mobai leave, Gong Ajixu asked a question. You always have to make a fuss before you want something. After saying this, Hong Mengqi picked up his tea, took a sip and squinted his eyes, seemingly enjoying it. How will you handle this? Gong Ajixu's words made Hong Mengqi look at him in surprise. You still care about such a small thing? Nangong Xunyu contacted me before. The current headmaster of Chunyang Academy is Nangong Xunyu, known as the #1 person to achieve core formation. He once relied on the Pure Yang Scroll and the Yuan Yang Sword technique to test his skills against Kingping Shangren, who was at the nascent soul stage. Although he ultimately lost, he was not at a disadvantage on the field. Many people say that if Nanggong Chuanyu were to use the Yuanyang sword, even a nascent soul cultivator might be defeated by it. Is he about to form his nascent soul? Gong Ajixu only mentioned it once, but Hong Mengqi already understood the implied meaning. If the boundary gate doesn't fluctuate, he might already be in seclusion. Earth Star is resource poor. Gong Ajixu, who is second only to the 3 hall masters of the immortal sect, only has 1 nascent soul spirit medicine. Although Nanggong Chuanyu is the principal of Chenyang Academy, he can probably only rely on his own brute force to achieve nascent soul. However, when the boundary gate fluctuates, everything changes. After all, no one knows exactly how many resources the other world has that is approaching. With no other choice, Nanggong Chuanyu, the number 1 person to form the core formation, could only go into seclusion to seek a sliver of opportunity to form the nascent soul. Now that there is hope, who would be willing to risk their life to achieve nascent soul? All right, I'll try my best to dissuade those chief students from the Dance Weapon Academy who have already graduated. Since Gong Ajixu had already said all that, Hong Mengqi was a little annoyed, but he still had to give him face. Thank you. After exchanging greetings, Gong Ajixu smiled and left. Teacher, if we don't take action, I'm afraid none of the Foundation establishment cultivators in the academy are a match for Xiaohu Waihuan. After the lady in the court dress, who had been keeping her head down and brewing tea, was left with only Hong Mengqi, she raised her delicate chin, her eyebrows slightly furrowed, and handed him a new cup with her snow-white hands. Let him be arrogant for a while. Teacher, we cannot let the 1,000-year-old reputation of the Dance Weapon Academy be ruined in our generation. The lady in the court dress was a little dissatisfied and pouted as she poured out the tea leaves from the teapot. Don't worry, I just checked. This generation's top player is something else. I estimate he'll be able to achieve an unprecedented record. Hong Mengqi recalled the sword strike Chen Mobai had used to defeat 20 people in a row. With his discerning eye, he naturally saw through Chen Mobai's background at a glance. The sword Rainbow Split Light can even fight against late-stage Foundation establishment opponents, but the little Crimson Heavens Realm protection mechanism will ensure that Chen Mobai, who is at the first level of Foundation establishment, can only be matched with opponents at the 6th level of Foundation establishment at most. To be honest, Hong Mengqi felt that Chi Yucheng was bullying Chen Mobai by releasing his disciple. However, he acts in a sinister and cunning manner, which is typical of his style when it comes to collecting figurines. I thought that as I got older, I wouldn't be so cunning anymore, but who knew that old habits die hard, and I'm still as wicked as ever. But it was precisely for this reason that Hong Mengqi agreed to Gong Ajixu's request. Because he knew that given Chi Yucheng's style of doing things, after Xiaohu Waihuan shouted, the true lineage of Chicheng lies in Chenyang, there would be at least 3 waves of overt or covert measures to be taken. Next, we'll just sit here and drink tea, and watch how your senior uncle suppresses the Chenyang Academy. The next day, Chen Mobai did not take a large group of student council members out again. Besides disliking being surrounded by people, he also knew that after activation, he could project himself into Little Red Heaven from any location covered by the Chicheng Mountain spiritual vein via his mobile phone. Same time, same result. Faced with this beautiful senior student with fair skin, he regretfully maintained his persona of defeating his enemy with a single sword strike. Unfortunately, Chen Mobai really wanted to know the name of this senior from Taiyuan Academy. Even though she had gone easy on him, she seemed to have lost her fighting spirit when she saw him in the match. With a single sword strike, she merely made a token attempt to raise a shield before being burned to ashes. This beautiful senior seemed to be quite famous in certain groups. After defeating 20 opponents as usual, Chen Mobai searched online for a while and found that many people were criticizing him for having no chivalry towards women. Chen Mobai immediately logged into his alternate account and started impersonating someone else in the comments section of this post. The protectors, who had initially been trying to calm things down, began to berate and denounce the Dance Weapon Academy members as rude and uncouth under his leadership. As the rhythm picks up, experience increases steadily. Soon, Chen Mobai had already achieved a terrifying record of winning every battle in 5 days in Little Red Heaven. A 100% win rate is not unheard of. Before Chen Mobai, the Yuanyang ancestor had a record of 119 battles with a 100% win rate in the Little Red Heaven. During the 120th battle, the Yuan Yang ancestor, who was then at the 7th level of Foundation establishment, was defeated by a pseudo-core formation cultivator from the Kunpeng Dao Academy. Can Chen Mobai break this record? If someone had mentioned this topic 5 days ago, even students from the Dance Weapon Academy would have scoffed at it. 119 matches, 100% win rate. Even if the primordial ancestor were reborn, he probably couldn't do it. But today, everyone is eagerly awaiting this day. One of the reasons I sent you out is to shatter and destroy everything that Chunyang Academy is so proud of. In the office of Building Number 1 at Chicheng Mountain, Chi Yucheng spoke to Chen Mobai. Teacher, you knew all along that Chunyang Academy was going to challenge the status of our Dance Weapon Academy. Chen Mobai looked surprised. He thought he would become the student council president, but it was just a coincidence that he met Zuo Kiyoshi, who wanted to run away, and there happened to be a teacher who was the director of the academic affairs office. Pretty much, the boundary gate is fluctuating. Before the two realms officially hand over to each other, we will definitely need to send someone to the other side to find out the situation. Nangong Xuanyu is the closest to nascent soul formation, so he definitely won't let this opportunity slip by. Gong Ajixu has a decent relationship with him, so he'll probably take his side. As long as Chunyang Academy performs well in Zaya Chishan, then the team sent to the other world to investigate will have a reason to place people from Chunyang Academy there. After listening to Chi Yucheng's words, Chen Mobai patted his chest, indicating that he understood what he needed to do. Don't worry, teacher. I have more than 20 pure Yang students who have achieved the 5 heavens / As long as I am still in the lesser Crimson Heaven, no one in the early and middle stages of Foundation establishment will be more dazzling than me. After saying this, Chen Mobai thought of Xiaohu Waihuan and other chief students of Chunyang Academy who had graduated many years ago. I might lose in the late Foundation establishment stage, and I won't be able to get a match either, so there's no way I can snipe them. Just as he was fretting, Chi Yucheng smiled. Our Dance Weapon Academy also has many chief graduates, but they are all busy exploring the Golden Core path. Although they will come out of seclusion if I call them, it would be too deliberate and a low-level tactic for our Dance Weapon Academy's former chief graduates to come forward to suppress the Pure Yang Academy. Chen Mobai understood, but also didn't quite understand. Then, teacher, how exactly can we use superior methods to suppress Xiaohu Waihuan and his group, who are running rampant in the late Foundation establishment stage? Chi Yucheng didn't hide it from his disciple Chen Mobai. He made 2 phone calls in front of him. The call was to the academic affairs directors of Kunpeng Dao Academy and Bushan Dao Academy. They first chatted about everyday things, and then the caller casually mentioned the recent events at Zaya Chishan. I heard your chief got beaten up. Who did this? He's actually the top student at Chunyang Academy. Are the students from your Taoist Academy inferior to those from Chunyang? Oh, so it's the former chief of Chunyang who graduated many years ago. No wonder Master Ling and Taishi Shu couldn't beat them. After making 2 phone calls, Chi Yucheng was hung up on with a smile on his face. If I had called them a few days earlier and used this incident to provoke them, they would have definitely mocked our Dance Weapon Academy for being sparsely populated and cowardly, to the point that we've been reduced to having someone like you, a Foundation Establishment Level 1 cultivator, as our chief. That won't be the case now, because Chen Mobai is invincible and the most prominent figure in Zio Chishan, bringing unparalleled glory to the Wuki Dao Academy. Chi Yucheng looked at his apprentice Chen Mobai and became more and more satisfied, his old face beaming with joy. Teacher, I've brought you and the academy so much honor. Shouldn't the academy give me 2 extra credits? As Chen Mobai spoke, he pretended that his hand was a little sore, as if the 100 swords he had slashed in the previous 5 days had been very tiring. Credit is the foundation of the academy system, and no teacher has the right to give students credits. At this moment, Chi Yucheng solemnly refused Chen Mobai's request. I was just saying. By the way, teacher, when will Master Shaoyang emerge from seclusion? My classmate Ming Yihua, who also cultivates the pure Yang scripture, has already reached the foundation establishment stage, but he hasn't met this mentor yet. Chen Mobai immediately changed the subject. He knew that although Chi Yucheng was a very good teacher, he was a bit old-fashioned and rigid, and the biggest defender of the laws of the immortal sect. Only in this way can the immortal sect, this civilized world of cultivation, exist. As cultivators increase their power and realm, they will increasingly disregard worldly laws and order. As a result, things will become like in the heavenly river realm, where etiquette and music will collapse and the strong will be respected. The fact that seniority is determined by cultivation level shows just how broken the order has become in the heavenly river realm. On the other hand, the immortal sect maintains a set of effective heavenly rules and regulations from top to bottom, ensuring the orderly inheritance of civilization on Earth's star, and that everyone is like a dragon. The biggest difference between the heavenly river realm and the immortal sect lies in this point. Order. Speaking of which, I just remembered that Senior Sister Duanmu has a few third-tier magic weapon artifact fragments hidden away. Your artifact fragment probably hasn't been used yet. You've done a great service to the academy this time. When school starts next year, I'll take you to the depths of the Myriad Treasures Cave. Upon hearing Chi Yucheng's words, Chen Mobai's eyes widened in surprise. Teacher, wasn't it said that the magical artifacts in the artifact-containing spheres of the Myriad Treasures Cave are all random? It's random. The artifact-containing orb on Senior Sister Duanmu's island randomly yields a third-tier magic artifact. Chi Yucheng said earnestly, some things don't need to be said too clearly. Chen Mobai gave him a thumbs up. Don't be too happy yet. A third-tier magic weapon might not be suitable for you. Besides, I can only mention this matter. Whether Senior Sister Duanmu is willing to accept it is still a question. However, the fact that Chi Yucheng dared to say that means he was somewhat confident. After all, Chen Mobai really made a name for himself for the Dance Weapon Academy in Little Red Heaven this time. If the academy doesn't offer any rewards, where will future students find the motivation? That evening, just as Chen Mobai was looking at the third-tier magic weapon pattern and description on the treasure map, someone he hadn't contacted in a long time called. Blue Sea and Sky. What's up? Having already collaborated once, and having owed Yang Jing a favor in the matter, Chen Mobai accepted the offer. Would it be convenient to talk in person? I'm at Chicheng Mountain. Lan Haitian's voice came through the phone. At the entrance of the Dance Weapon Academy, Chen Mobai looked at Lan Haitian, who was both familiar and somewhat unfamiliar, with a strange expression on his face. What's going on? Could it be that members of a cult have infiltrated the Little Crimson Heaven this time? Chen Mobai could only think of this reason. He had already imagined that Gong A Jixu, this important figure, was the target of the cult's attack. Perhaps, in the shadows where they, the common people, could not see, the Patching Heaven group and the Ascension cult were already fighting each other to the death. Director Nan of the Dao Academy asked me to come here to help Kunpeng Dao Academy get first place in Zaya Chishan. Lan Haitian said it casually. Chen Mobai immediately gave his teacher Chi Yucheng a thumbs up in his heart. That move was truly superb. Study like crazy. End of this chapter. Chapter 279, Simultaneous Cultivation Technique of Spiritual Weapons. Chapter 279, Simultaneous Cultivation Technique of Spiritual Weapons. Lan Haitian is the most renowned foundation establishment cultivator at Kunpeng Dao Academy, and his strength is recognized by the immortal sects as the best in this realm. Chen Mobai did his best to be a good host. Is the avatar projected into Little Crimson Heaven a being with infinite spiritual power? During the meal, Lan Haitian did not forget the important business of coming to see Chen Mobai. Although he was very confident in his abilities, making thorough preparations before acting was always his principle. When the battle begins, it will be assumed that the avatar you project inside is the same as the one outside. Using spells will also consume spiritual power. Once the spiritual power is exhausted, Zio Chishin will determine that you have automatically conceded defeat. But after a match ends, whether you win or lose, your spiritual power will be restored to its peak state if you match again. As long as your spirit can hold up, theoretically, you can keep matching opponents in Little Red Heaven. After listening to Chen Mobai's explanation, Lan Haitian nodded slightly, indicating that he understood. The projection of Little Red Heaven into the body will not diminish spiritual power, but it will damage one's mental state. That's why many people can only play a maximum of 10 matches a day. Chen Mobai's opponents were too weak to pose a threat to him, and he defeated them all with a single sword strike, so he could easily win 20 matches a day. Before I came, Director Nan said that after I won first place, I would visit Director Chi of your academy. When they parted, Lan Haitian suddenly said this, and Chen Mobai immediately pretended not to know. "Oh, is there something you need?" Lan Haitian looked at Chen Mobai and simply smiled. "This is going to be interesting." Chen Mobai and Lan Haitian had fought side by side, and he clearly understood that this person's reputation was well-deserved. However, Zaihu Waihuan of Chenyang Academy is also a Foundation Establishment Level 9 cultivator at the same level as him, and he is also the top-tier master of Chenyang Scroll and Yuanyang Sword Technique. Although his strength was reduced by 20% in Zaya Chishin because he could not bring his natal flying sword, I always feel that he will have a fierce battle with Lan Haitian. Chen Mobai immediately reported this matter to Chi Yucheng. The latter was also stunned after hearing this, seemingly not expecting that Kunpeng Academy would send Lan Haitian out. It seems that Taishi Shu's defeat has greatly angered Nandu. The Dean of Academic Affairs at Kunpeng Academy is named Nandu, and he is the most renowned among the 4 major academies in the past 100 years. Although he is only at the Golden Core stage, he has a 4th-tier companion beast, which is why Nandu is treated as a nascent soul cultivator in the immortal sects. Why hasn't the Heaven Mending Academy made any move? Chen Mobai asked again. Back then, when Master Ling and Master Taishi were defeated, it was a huge disgrace to these 2 academies in the entire immortal sect live broadcast. Chenyang Academy, by stepping on these 2 people, and with Zaihu Waihuan shouting, "The true lineage of Chicheng lies in Chenyang," has caused many forums to start discussing whether Wuki Dao Academy, which has always been at the bottom of the 4 major academies, should move up in position. Just wait. By the way, I asked Senior Sister Duanmu, and she's allowed you to open a 3rd-tier artifact sphere. Are you free now? I'll take you down. Upon hearing another piece of good news, Chen Mobai nodded excitedly. Teacher, I lent that artifact fragment to Ming Yihua. But immediately, Chen Mobai thought of this problem and frowned. It's all right, just call him, and I'll take him with me to see Senior Sister Duanmu. Upon arriving at the depths of Wanbao Cave once again, Chen Mobai still felt somewhat hot along the way. In front of the stone house, Ming Yihua took the artifact fragment from Duanmu Longrong and immediately handed it to Chen Mobai. Are these the new pure Yang Dao seeds? Duanmu Longrong suddenly asked a question that surprised Chen Mobai and Ming Yihua. Not bad, Senior Sister. Chi Yucheng nodded slightly. It's a bit weak. Duanmu Longrong glanced at the 2 of them and shook her head expressionlessly. Those who can still grow might be the ones to take over from our Senior Sister 100 years from now. Chi Yucheng said this with a smile. Duanmu Longrong glared at him in annoyance. Without saying anything more, the former immediately led Ming Yihua upstairs. When only Chen Mobai remained, he looked at the core formation cultivator in front of him with some nervousness. The latter did not make things difficult for him because he was Chi Yucheng's disciple. You wait here and don't move. As she spoke, Duanmu Longrong pointed to the huge Yuguo tree beside her, then got up and went into the stone house behind her. Chen Mobai peeked inside and found that there were cabinets, some empty and some with ordinary-looking white jade balls on them. Are these all third-order artifact spheres? Chen Mobai wanted to count them, but found that Duanmu Longrong had already closed the door. He could only wait under the Zhuguo tree. I can confirm that one of these four is a fire attribute magic weapon. What you get depends on your own luck. After Duanmu Longrong came out, she waved her red and black sleeves, and four artifact-containing orbs appeared in front of Chen Mobai. The latter immediately activated its insightful eyes, a clear and bright light appearing above its pupils, quickly penetrating the surface and revealing the general outline inside. They are respectively a circle, a lump of paste, a bell shape, and a long strip. The third-tier artifact sphere contained even more potent sealed spiritual liquid, so much so that even his void-piercing spiritual eyes could not see through it completely. Even so, Duanmu Longrong showed surprise the moment she saw his gaze. Your spiritual eye technique is quite well developed. Thank you for the compliment, Teacher Duanmu. This is the shape I see. I wonder if Teacher Duanmu could point out which third-tier magic artifact it is. Chen Mobai felt that Duanmu Longrong and Qi Yucheng had a decent relationship, so he started to get closer to them, describing the shapes of the four artifact spheres that he had seen with his void eye. The round one should be the 6-yang divine fire mirror. The blob is probably a third-tier crimson cloud smoke silk made by someone, but it could also be a higher-level magic weapon that you can't see clearly. The bell-shaped one should be the fire-separating bell. The long strip shape could be a flying sword, a ruler, or a flying needle. Duanmu Longrong did not make things difficult for Chen Mobai and told him everything she knew. Among them, the 6-yang divine fire mirror and the Li fire bell are both third-tier magic artifacts recorded on the Myriad Treasures map, and Chen Mobai can easily obtain the refining incantations. Chen Mobai also coveted the third-tier Crimson Cloud and Mist Robe, since this thing, when cultivated to its highest level, could take cultivators on a journey through the universe and the starry sea. However, considering that I already have a second-tier item given to me by Master Shaoyang, I'll rule that out for now. As for what Duanmu Longrong said, which might be a higher-level magical artifact, Chen Mobai didn't even consider it. He has always been cautious in his actions. The 6-yang divine fire mirror and the Li fire bell are both very suitable magical artifacts for him. The former can even be used to cultivate the spiritual artifact co-cultivation technique. There is no need for him to take risks for a mere possibility of co-cultivation. Even Duanmu Longrong wasn't sure about the last long, narrow magical artifact, so Chen Mobai would definitely not choose it. Let's go with the 6-yang divine fire mirror. After thinking for a long time, Chen Mobai chose the first artifact-containing ball. The previous owner of this magical artifact was also a pure yang cultivator, but unfortunately, due to the limitations of his pure yang dharma body, he was stuck at the 6th level of the golden core stage. However, he was also an excellent weapon refiner. According to the treasure map, the highest grade of this mirror was mid-grade of the 3rd rank. After the pure yang scroll cultivators passed away, they would basically put their life's essence into magic weapons, so choosing this one would definitely suit him. After seeing his choice, Duanmu Longrong did not try to persuade him, and simply put away the other 3 artifact orbs. Chen Mobai activated the artifact in his hand, and crimson fire elemental divine light surged out from the boundless magma outside the island, as if a fiery dragon had answered a summons. So this is where the source of the fire element divine light is. When Chen Mobai saw the crimson divine light break through the magma, it seemed to merge into a dark magical artifact. He could only glimpse the whole thing through a small part, and he didn't know its shape or its grade. He was also quite perceptive and didn't look at it for long. He looked down at the artifact sphere in his hand that had been activated by the fire elemental divine light. After the outer shell and spiritual liquid turned to ashes and dissipated, an ancient bronze mirror was revealed. The mirror was as smooth as new, like calm water, reflecting Chen Mobai's figure. Strangely, not only the skin was displayed, but also the bones and meridians inside the body were reflected on the mirror. Even the faintly glowing skull that he had infused with the sap of the tree of immortality was revealed. This mirror was made in imitation of the red heart mirror, and it probably has 1% of the power of the red heart mirror. Duanmu Longrong said something that moved Chen Mobai deeply. The Crimson Heart Mirror is a fourth-tier magic artifact, and it is also the possession of Abbot Chengshuan of the Dance Weapon Academy. It was through this artifact that the latter was able to cultivate the Cantong Qi and even form his nascent soul. Although it was a simplified version, Chen Mobai was already very satisfied. Now that he is the student council president, he can use the treasure map at will, so he directly looked up the refining incantation of the 6-Yang Divine Fire Mirror, and in front of Duanmu Longrong, refined this third-tier magic weapon into his dantian. Magic artifacts of the third rank or higher can be used as one's natal magic artifact. However, many cultivators do not determine their destiny at the beginning, because the spiritual energy of the immortal sect is limited. It is not enough for their own cultivation, so how could they have extra spiritual energy to refine and enhance the power of magic weapons? The Kantanki of the Wuki Daeyuan is a case of going in the opposite direction. By using magical artifacts to transcend the ranks of cultivators, one can elevate the cultivator's level, comprehend the true meaning within the artifact, continuously break through realms, and reach the pinnacle of creation. The Taoist temple has a technique called spiritual weapon cultivation technique that evolved from the Kantanki, a Taoist text. It is the only way to improve a cultivator's realm. For example, if Chen Mobai refines a third-tier magic weapon as his natal artifact, then during cultivation, he will draw power from the magic weapon to enhance himself. When his cultivation level is equal to that of the magic weapon, this spirit weapon simultaneous cultivation technique will be considered complete. Next, if a cultivator wants to improve, he must also improve his magical artifact in order to break through to a higher realm. Moreover, when practicing the art of cultivating both spiritual artifacts, one can only choose a magical artifact that is one level higher than one's own cultivation level. If one chooses one that is higher, one will explode and die the moment the artifact enters the body, without exception. Many foundation establishment cultivators, when they estimate that they will not be able to reach the 9th level of foundation establishment due to their remaining lifespan, will risk practicing the spiritual weapon simultaneous cultivation technique, using the power of high-grade magical artifacts to forcibly advance their breakthrough and attempt to form a core. In comparison, the Kantanki is different. Not only can it possess all the advantages of the spiritual artifact cultivation technique, but it can also refine 4th or even 5th-tier magical artifacts across realms, and can also block and sever this connection of cultivation at any time. For example, if Zhongli Tianyu feels that his ancestor's Bagua mirror is not to his liking, he can throw it away and replace it with a different one. To illustrate with a very simple example, those who cultivate the Cantong Qi are like scumbags, while those who cultivate the spiritual weapon simulation technique are devoted and single-minded. Chen Mobai felt that he was very suitable for cultivating the spiritual weapon simultaneous cultivation technique. When he first enrolled, Ming Yihua mentioned this, and after looking it up he kept it in mind. However, since there was no suitable third-tier magic weapon, it remained in my heart. Because the conditions for cultivating both spiritual artifacts are too restrictive, and once a personal artifact is chosen, it cannot be changed, making it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, many people are extremely cautious about it. Some foundation establishment cultivators even thought that, after forming their core through their own talent, they would find a 4th-tier magic weapon to cultivate the spirit weapon simulation technique, and reach the threshold of nascent soul formation. Chen Mobai wasn't one of those people with lofty ambitions. He had a clear understanding of himself. If he moves quickly enough, he can acquire more resources in the heavenly river realm. After all, in that world, strength is paramount. If he can form his core, he might be able to implement new policies within the Divine Tree sect, encouraging all foundation establishment cultivators to seek opportunities in the Divine Tree secret realm. The resources and secret techniques obtained in this way would be enough to elevate the divine tree sect to a higher level. Unfortunately, he has only reached the foundation establishment stage. After leaving Wanbao Cave, Chen Mobai went to building number 1 to thank Qi Yucheng. Without him, he didn't know when he would have been able to get his hands on the 6 Yang Divine Fire Mirror, which was so suitable for his cultivation technique of cultivating both spiritual weapons. Over the next few days, you can observe the changes in Zio Chishan. When the opportunity arises, you can then break Yuan Yang ancestors' winning streak record. Qi Yucheng looked approving upon hearing Chen Mobai's choice. In this way, at least one can use the dual cultivation technique of spiritual artifacts to attempt the foundation establishment of the pure Yang scroll. After Chen Mobai nodded and left building number 1, he went to building number 9 and opened a cultivation room. He had been stuck on the pure Yang scroll for over a year. If it weren't for the desire to establish his foundation through the Tao, he would have already taken the 3 treasures for foundation building and broken through. He hoped that the pure Yang essence within the 6 Yang Divine Fire Mirror could help him enter that legendary realm under the dual cultivation technique of spiritual artifacts. Within the purple mansion of consciousness, the flower and fruit at the top of a branch of the jade phoenix tree, which was formed from divine consciousness, fell down, transformed into a stream of light, and disappeared into the ancient bronze mirror in the Danshan Qi Si. In an instant, Chen Mobai felt as if he had entered a world of flames. The 6 kinds of true fire, each containing a different Taoist charm, were like 6 spiritual snakes winding and coiling towards his consciousness. In just a moment, they caused his consciousness to feel a sharp pain, as if his whole body was being burned and slowly turning into ashes. Is this the feel of those opponents I killed with a single sword strike? At this moment, Chen Mobai was thinking about this question. After all, his divine sense was powerful. Although the 6 Yang Divine Fire Mirror was a 3rd-tier magic weapon, it was not controlled by anyone. After surviving the initial wave, it began to be refined by him. At the same time, Chen Mobai also guided his pure Yang spiritual power, which was at the 9th level of Qi refining, into the channel. However, in just a moment, it was completely devoured by the 6 Yang Divine Fire. Logically speaking, a pure Yang cultivator at the Qi refining stage should not be able to refine a 3rd-tier magic weapon for the simultaneous cultivation of spiritual weapons. But he's different. End of this chapter. Chapter 280 Fire Spirit Body. Chapter 280 Fire Spirit Body. Although Chen Mobai's pure Yang scroll only had the cultivation level of the 9th level of Qi refining. However, due to the existence of the 2 phases technique, he is essentially at the foundation establishment stage, so he is able to refine the 3rd-tier 6 Yang Divine Fire Mirror. Under the cycle of the 2 phases, the vital and abundant spiritual energy of longevity was like wood, being devoured by the pure Yang spiritual energy that was originally just a spark. With Chen Mobai sparing no expense, the pure Yang spiritual energy, which was originally just gas, soon began to liquefy. Then, this drop of liquid pure Yang spiritual energy was injected into the 6 Yang Divine Fire Mirror. Soon, the bronze mirror, which was originally restless, began to calm down after sensing the power that was the same as its former owner. Chen Mobai's consciousness, which had seemed to be engulfed in a sea of fire, began to feel a sense of comfort at this moment. It feels like soaking in a hot spring, warm and light. He had the illusion that the flame was like hot water. In a hazy, dreamlike state, Chen Mobai's consciousness began to be lost in this vast expanse of flames. He seemed to have transformed into a spirit of fire, soaring freely within it. When he woke up from this state, it was 5 days later. Chen Mobai opened his eyes, looked at his right hand, snapped his fingers, and a spark appeared at his fingertips. This is the benefit he gained during his journey of learning the Tao, and it is also a powerful physique. It is called the Fire Spirit Body. Chen Mobai didn't know why he knew this name. It seemed to have naturally appeared in his consciousness. Knowing the name makes things much easier. I took out my phone and searched online, and sure enough, I found relevant content. It turns out that the fire spirit body is an extremely rare and powerful physique that may be born with the heavenly fire spirit root. Those who possess the fire spirit body will have different talents such as fire affinity, fire mastery, and fire resistance, depending on the degree of awakening. It allows one to achieve twice the results with half the effort when practicing fire attribute spells and techniques. Generally speaking, cultivators with fire attribute celestial spiritual roots may be born with a fire spirit body, but the probability is only 1%. Conversely, a cultivator with a fire spirit body must have a heavenly fire spirit root. This is a rule derived by the immortal sect. After reading it, Chen Mobai was completely confused. He took out the spirit testing device and checked his spiritual root attribute again. His fire spiritual root had increased by 10 points during the process of learning the Tao and establishing the foundation, becoming Fire 63, which can be considered as taking a step into the ranks of geniuses. But it's still not a heavenly fire spiritual root, is it? After much thought, Chen Mobai couldn't figure it out, and in the end, he could only attribute this fire spirit body to the fact that it was bestowed by the great Tao of heaven and earth, so that he, who did not have the heavenly fire spirit root, could directly possess it. After suppressing the wild thoughts in his mind, Chen Mobai took out his azure sun flame. He used his fire spirit body to activate the rising sun technique, and soon the fire seed, which was originally only purple with a hint of blue, instantly transformed into a flame that was half purple and half blue. With only a small portion missing, this spark will be able to fully transform into Qingyang fire. Chen Mobai was invigorated. He knew that the complete azure yang fire was a peak second-tier spiritual fire, possessing some of the characteristics of a third-tier spiritual fire. With this as a foundation, if he could cultivate the azure flame sword fiend, he could even put up a fight against a core formation true person. Because sword aura can only be condensed by cultivators who have reached the core formation stage. Unfortunately, he had only had the azure sun flame for a short time. Although he had continuously refined it with the pure azure technique and the fire spirit energy of the myriad treasures cave, he had only completed most of the upgrade under the amplification of the rising sun technique and the fire spirit body. After making a breakthrough in his cultivation, Chen Mobai went to the divine tree secret realm as soon as possible. Unfortunately, the magic tree had already been infused with pure yang spiritual power, so even though he had successfully established his foundation, he still couldn't obtain the exclusive fruit from it. Chen Mobai went to the talent tree again. This tree was more sensitive. After his fire spirit root was enhanced again due to the foundation establishment of the Tao, it gave him a precious fire body forging technique. Chen Mobai wasn't too concerned at first, but after reading it, his eyes widened in surprise. This precious fire body forging technique requires the use of azure yang fire and the sap of the longevity tree. The former's properties of fire within wood are used to thoroughly refine and release the powerful vitality of the latter's sap, permeating the entire body and greatly increasing the speed of forging the longevity Tao body. The talent tree is way too intelligent. Chen Mobai looked at the enormous, towering divine tree before him with some disbelief. The ancient longevity sect, with its profound foundation, had still disappeared into the long river of history, which showed just how terrifying the hidden power within the heavenly river realm truly was. In the divine tree secret realm, he practiced the spells on the pure yang scroll using his newly acquired fire spirit body, and without exception, they all received amplification and improvement. He combined the burning lamp technique and the precious fire body forging technique, and in a short period of time, he managed to fuse all the sap from the longevity tree that had been refined into his skull, but had not yet been fully refined. The void-piercing eye was affected and improved further, but without testing, it is unknown how much of an improvement it has compared to before. After the sap of the longevity tree fused completely with the skull, Chen Mobai felt that his purple mansion sea of consciousness seemed to have expanded further, and the speed of his divine sense circulation had also increased. I wonder if the power of the divine slash has also increased. Thinking about this, Chen Mobai couldn't help himself. He returned to the immortal sect and logged into the lesser Crimson Heaven. Soon, the Foundation establishment cultivators who had been paying close attention to him clicked on the matching requests one after another. Before his first opponent could even utter a word, a sharp, piercing light seemed to flash in Chen Mobai's eyes, transforming into an invisible heavenly blade that blew his head off. With a simple move, he defeated the enemy once again. Only the fourth level of Foundation establishment. That's a bit lacking. Chen Mobai muttered to himself, then clicked the match button again. 3 seconds later, a handsome man dressed in the uniform of Chunyang Academy appeared in front of him. His undisguised aura caused Chen Mobai to show a look of delight. Fifth level of Foundation establishment, not bad. After discerning his opponent's cultivation level with his insightful eyes, Chen Mobai, unusually, did not immediately defeat his opponent with the purple fire sword light. Instead, he unleashed a fire attribute spell that he had been practicing diligently for a long time. The opponent was clearly aware of Chen Mobai's powerful combat abilities and dared not be careless in the slightest. With a burst of sword energy, he cleaved Chen Mobai's fireball technique and was about to charge forward in one fell swoop. But he discovered that his opponent had clenched his right fist, and the fireball that he had just cleaved was instantly detonated. Fireball technique. He also has the foundation of the Pure Yang scripture. Seeing this, the Foundation establishment cultivator from Chunyang Academy was taken aback, but his movements were swift. He drew out 10 sword lights with his fingers to form a net, and at the same time, he turned his toes, spinning like a top, and blocked all the explosive power caused by the flame burst technique. However, this also made him a target. Chen Mobai naturally wouldn't let this opportunity pass. He unleashed a sword strike, and a brilliant, deep purple sword light slashed down heavily, colliding with his opponent's spinning sword energy, but was silently diminished. With a poof sound. Although Chen Mobai's purple fire sword light was blocked by his opponent, the opponent also coughed up blood and flew backward, spinning several times in the air before crouching on the ground. That's interesting. During this period, Chen Mobai has experienced countless battles in Zaya Chishan, encountering all sorts of opponents, including those who could not be defeated with a single sword strike. But no one else caught his eye as much as this opponent before him. I've taken your sword strike, so I should be able to leave my name now. The handsome man from Chunyang Academy stood up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and looked somewhat honored despite his defeat. Chang Xingyang, 9th grader at Chunyang Academy. You're not bad. It just so happens that my cultivation has made a breakthrough. Let's kill some more time together. As Chen Mobai spoke, a crimson bolt of lightning flashed in his right palm, like a whip lashing out at his opponent. Chang Xingyang hadn't expected this. He was already proud of being able to defeat the chief swordsman of the Dance Weapon Academy with a single sword strike, but now, caught off guard, he was taken away. I still don't have enough experience in combat. Seeing Chang Xingyang blasted into dust by the Binghuo Divine Thunder technique, Chen Mobai couldn't help but shake his head. Even when facing a dead opponent in the Tian realm, one cannot let one's guard down. Although this little Crimson Heaven can also improve their combat skills and hone their techniques, it is not a life-or-death battle after all, so they are naturally a step behind in terms of mentality. Chen Mobai clicked the match button again. In his third battle today, he encountered a very powerful opponent, the chief of the Lingbao Academy at the 6th level of Foundation establishment, named Dai Shiking. Greetings, senior brother Chen from the Upper Academy. However, after Dai Shiking entered, he first respectfully performed an ancient salute to Chen Mobai, which was the etiquette of the Dance Weapon Academy. The 10 major academies were basically branched off from the 4 major academies. The Lingbao Academy is a branch of the Wuqi Academy. His main skills are the art of self-unity with the weapon, and the art of cultivating both spirit and weapon, which evolved from the Cantong Qi. Chen Mobai was also practicing the latter, while the former was a treasure-controlling technique that could unify the mind and body in the shortest time to refine the magic weapon and unleash its greatest power. the principal of Lingbao Academy, is also the only fifth-level appraiser in the immortal sect. It's a pity that magical artifacts cannot be used here. After returning the greeting to Dai Shiking, Chen Mobai looked at the latter with his insightful eyes and shook his head regretfully. His cultivation level is quite good. If he had a natal magic weapon, he would be very likely to be able to fight me. After all, as the chief of Lingbao Academy, Dai Shiking was very likely to have refined a third-order magic weapon and cultivated the spirit weapon simultaneous cultivation technique. It is already an honor to be able to spar with the chief senior brother of the upper academy, so how could I dare to say it is a pity? Dai Shiking, however, appeared carefree. After bowing, he used a movement technique, splitting himself into two, then into four, and launched attack spells at Chen Mobai from all directions. However, with the activation of his insightful eyes, Chen Mobai quickly discerned which one was his true form. As the divine slash flew out, Dai Shiking on the right suddenly froze for a moment. Chen Mobai seized the opportunity and slashed out with his sword. Radiant Light Technique. However, Dai Shiking was, after all, the chief of Lingbao Academy. Although his divine sense was out of control, his body sensed the danger, and a powerful defensive spell engraved in his dantian was activated in an emergency, transforming into a precious bell that firmly enveloped him. The brilliant sword light fell, colliding with the treasure light technique to create a deafening roar. Dai Shiking woke up from the commotion, his face filled with lingering fear. But Chen Mobai's sword was blocked, so he immediately slashed out with another sword. After two consecutive sword strikes, the bell formed by the treasure light technique began to sway and crack. The great technique of ripping and disintegrating treasures. Those who can reach the level of the top 10 academies are naturally not just at the 6th level of foundation establishment. Although Dai Shiking does not have any magic weapons, he still has a trump card of desperate magic. Seeing that the treasure light technique was about to be broken, he simply took advantage of Little Red Sky's fearlessness of death and abandoned his defenses. While destroying the treasure light technique, he also unleashed all the spiritual power in his dantian, turning it into a white torrent of spiritual energy that rushed towards Chen Mobai like a monstrous wave. At the same time, Dai Shiking himself was struck in the chest by the purple fire sword light due to the disappearance of the treasure light technique, and was on the verge of dying. It was this breath that allowed him to see Chen Mobai use a defensive technique for the first time since entering Little Crimson Heaven. Just as a single spirit leaf began to bloom, Dai Shiking could no longer hold on and turned to ashes. Chen Mobai felt the towering white waves that crashed in front of him vanish in an instant, and his face showed a slight melancholy. After he mastered the sword rainbow-splitting light, Meng Hong, Qi Yucheng, and even Master Zhuogong all said that such power was basically unmatched unless one encountered someone above the late foundation establishment stage. However, we must also be wary of a few exceptionally talented individuals in the mid-foundation establishment stage, as their strength has already surpassed their own realm, and they should be able to fight against those in the late foundation establishment stage. In the words of the Heavenly River realm, these are all outstanding talents. Chen Mobai had never encountered one before, but he finally did today. Since entering Xia Chishan, Dai Shiking has been the only opponent who has made him feel threatened. Although the opponent took advantage of Xia Chishan's fearless rule and used desperate spells regardless of his own safety, it is clear that due to his exaggerated 100% win rate and the fact that he is about to break Yuan Yang Ancestors' winning streak record, he will likely encounter chief-level opponents like Dai Shiking at the 6th level of foundation establishment next. However, the more this happened, the more excited Chen Mobai felt an involuntary surge of excitement from the depths of his heart. While the instant kill is cool, it's just too boring. He hopes to lose to a powerful opponent in a showdown at the top, rather than constantly floundering in the mire. Click match again. Soon, our third opponent of the day arrived. Chen Mobai was slightly surprised when he saw her. Long time no see. King Nu greeted Chen Mobai. You didn't even tell me you successfully established your foundation. The last time Chen Mobai contacted Qing Nu, She said she was about to establish her foundation. It was because of this that he entrusted the task of refining the clear-eye bamboo spirit due to Wang Xingyu. It's just a very ordinary thing, not worth making a special mention of. King Nu shook her head and said calmly, "All right then." Hearing this, Chen Mobai didn't know how to continue the conversation. Ever since Kong Feiken left with Yang Jing, she had tended to withdraw into herself. He wasn't very good at giving advice, and besides, it wasn't appropriate in this situation. "Please advise." To avoid further trouble, Chen Mobai bowed and then raised his right index finger, pointing it at the woman in front of him. With a single sword strike, Qing Nu vanished from his sight. End of this chapter. Chapter 280, One Lu Qialong. Chapter 280, One Lu Qialong. The true form of Qing Nu awoke in a high-tech chair. She breathed softly and loosened her grip on her hands. "You're really unlucky. After a 10-game winning streak, you ran into that monster." A glass of water was handed to King Nu, and a mature woman wearing a white coat and glasses saw the battle scene playing on the screen on the opposite wall. This is one of the benefits of the Skymending group. After each battle, the supercomputer helps them analyze the reasons for victory and defeat, listing various details they had not considered. While improving everyone's combat abilities, it also cultivates their higher-level combat awareness. I knew he was strong, but I didn't expect him to be this strong. King Nu took the water and drank it all in one gulp, seemingly trying to dispel the restlessness caused by the burning of the projected avatar due to being extinguished by the purple fire sword light. This person is a peerless sword genius, one in 1,000 years. He comprehended the sword rainbow-splitting light at the first level of Foundation establishment. I wonder how the Dance Weapon Academy cultivated such a person. The mature woman is Zhang Li, the deputy leader of the fourth group of the Heaven Mending team. She also created an account in the Little Crimson Heaven. Unfortunately, despite her expertise in medicine and poisons, her performance was below average in an environment where spiritual power and magic were the only means of survival. I was once lucky enough to be matched with Chen Mobai, and I was instantly killed by his sword. He probably figured it out himself. I wonder if he can break the record set by ancestor Yuan Yang. After drinking the water, Qing Nu calmed herself down for a while and finally managed to remove the burning sensation from her mind caused by the destruction of the projected avatar. She stood up and clicked on the screen to watch Chen Mobai's next battle. It's going to be tough. They actually matched this guy in. At this moment, Zhang Li saw Chen Mobai's next opponent and couldn't help but widen her eyes and sigh. He was a man with yellowish skin, large hands and feet, and a rugged face. Who is this person? Qing Nu knew that although Zhang Li's combat skills were average, she was very familiar with some of the outstanding talents of the immortal sects because she came from the Zhang Li family and was in the Heaven Mending group. She had personally experienced Chen Mobai's strength, but when she saw that man, she thought he might lose. Therefore, it is quite obvious that this person's background and strength are extraordinary. He is Lu Qialong. Upon hearing this name, Qing Nu's eyes widened in shock. It was him. Yes. After seeing King Nu off, Chen Mobai sighed softly. This is a hurdle that only Qing Nu can overcome on her own. He shook his head, cleared his mind, and clicked the match button again. A man who looked a bit older than his age appeared in front of him. With his insightful eye activated, Chen Mobai had already seen through his cultivation level. The foundation has 5 layers. However, his blood and qi were more vigorous than ordinary people, as if they were burning. When he tried to see more clearly, he found that his opponent's blood and qi suddenly transformed into a majestic, colorful worm, which opened its blood-red maw and rushed into Chen Mobai's purple mansion and sea of consciousness along his gaze. Roar! Caught off guard, a magnificent tiger, seemingly real, appeared before the tongue tree seedling from which he had just been distracted. Its sharp, white teeth opened, about to bite off the sapling of the Chinese parasol tree. Clang! A metallic clang, like the sound of a sword being drawn, rang out. A green sprout fell, transforming into an invisible blade that slashed through the air, instantly piercing the center of the tiger's forehead between the characters for king. Under the divine slash, the illusory ferocious tiger formed from the condensation of blood and murderous intent vanished like a bubble into Chen Mobai's purple mansion sea of consciousness. But this sudden movement jolted Chen Mobai, who had been somewhat relaxed, back into high spirits. At this point, due to his terrifying record, the only people he can be matched with, besides those who are also on a winning streak, are a small group of the most outstanding people in the mid-stage of Foundation establishment. These people all possess terrifying combat skills and have already made a name for themselves in the Little Crimson Heaven. Lu Qialong. The big man gave his name, and Chen Mobai nodded to indicate that he remembered it. You don't know who I am. Seeing that Chen Mobai remained calm upon hearing his name, Lu Qialong was puzzled and couldn't help but ask. Are you famous? Chen Mobai had never heard of Lu Qialong before. In the immortal sect, he was a true and devoted cultivator. Apart from going to the heavenly river realm to collect resources, he studied and cultivated at Chicheng Mountain. They really are oblivious to what's going on outside their window. Oh no, how did the guild leader end up with this guy? Outside, the members of the Dance Weapon Academy Student Union, who had been paying close attention to Chen Mobai, frowned when they saw Chen Mobai's opponent. Even Ming Yu, who had always revered Chen Mobai, couldn't help but frown. I think he's only at the 5th level of Foundation establishment. Old Chen has probably killed a dozen or so at the 5th level with his sword. Is this person really that frightening to you all? Ming Yihua, who had come along to watch the show on the big screen, scratched his head, puzzled by the way the student council members looked on high alert. This person is the top graduate of the True Spirit Academy. Although his cultivation level is average, his companion beast is a second-tier peak Teju ferocious tiger. Its combat strength is so strong that it ranks among the top even in the late Foundation establishment stage. Hua Zijing looked worried. Then there's even less to fear. Little Crimson Heaven magic artifacts can't even be brought in, let alone spirit beasts. Old Chen is bound to win. Ming Yihua's opinion differed from that of the student council members. The True Spirit Academy is different. If you know that your opponent is strong, you can absorb the power of your companion beast in advance, even at the cost of mental exhaustion. Lu Tianxuan voiced everyone's concerns, and Ming Yihua couldn't help but gasp upon hearing it. If that's the case, Chen Mobai might actually be no match for him. Now all we can do is pray that Lu Qialong didn't do that. Chen Mobai was unaware of this. After his opponent was Lu Qialong, almost all the cultivators from the immortal sects who were watching Xiao Chishan's live stream turned their attention to watch this fierce battle between them. At that moment, the top trending topic on all portal websites and forums was this battle. Are you from Kunpeng Dao Academy or Zhenling Academy? Chen Mobai asked Lu Qialong. Among the immortal sects, these two are the most famous for their beast-taming abilities. True Spirit Academy. Oh, that's a bit of a pity. What's a pity? Most of your strength as beast tamers lies in your companion beasts. In this Little Crimson Heaven, you cannot unleash your full potential, which is somewhat unsatisfying. As Chen Mobai spoke, he withdrew his void inside eye. Lu Qialong has undoubtedly mastered the art of spirit control to an extremely high level. His bloodline and beast control are now one, and he possesses the ferocious aura of the Teju ferocious tiger. If I hadn't mastered the divine control slash, which would allow me to counter him, I would probably have been defeated in the blink of an eye. It's not a pity, because I knew I was going to be matched with you today, so I borrowed some of my companion's power in advance. As Lu Qialong spoke, he clenched his fists. With a loud bang, a powerful and majestic aura of killing intent erupted from every pore of his body, and his clothes tore open, revealing his perfectly proportioned physique. Chen Mobai's eyes suddenly tightened. Lu Qialong suddenly disappeared from his sight, and an indescribable terrifying fist force, carrying a fierce and murderous aura, struck his right cheek. So fast. This pure physical speed was the fastest Chen Mobai had encountered in his more than 100 battles. Fortunately, his sword light had reached the level where his thoughts could follow his will. With one finger raised on his right hand, a brilliant, deep purple sword light burst forth, cutting between Lu Qiulong's face just before his fist struck. Sword light and fist force. From the very beginning, they clashed with the most direct and powerful force. Amidst a deafening roar, Lu Qiulong's left fist, blocked by the sword light, burst into wild laughter. Instead of advancing, he retreated, and his right fist, imbued with violent blood energy, slammed heavily towards Chen Mobai's chin. But at that moment, Chen Mobai raised his left index finger and pointed a sword at him. With a loud bang, the massive impact emanated from the two of them and began to spread outwards, causing Chen Mobai to be sent flying backwards. As he retreated, he clasped his hands together in a loose fist, and streaks of dazzling crimson lightning began to form in his palms. Lu Qiulong landed on both feet, his whole body like a cannonball, rushing against the current towards Chen Mobai. Amidst the roar, Lu Qiulong collided head-on with the Bing Fire Divine Thunder technique. His hair was ablaze, and his bronze-colored skin crackled with crimson lightning, yet he managed to shatter this powerful spell. She was now close to Chen Mobai again. At that moment, two more fireballs shot out from Chen Mobai's palm, accompanied by sword light. With a swing of his fist, the fireball and sword light shattered simultaneously. However, Chen Mobai's fighting talent began to emerge under the stimulation of a powerful opponent. He moved his hands again, activated his divine sense, and used the fire chain technique obtained from the longevity sect. The flames and sword light that Lu Qiulong had scattered were quickly condensed and solidified under his divine sense, transforming into a long chain of flames. As if rooted in the void, they stretched out one by one, firmly binding Lu Qiulong, who had already rushed in front of Chen Mobai. After taking control, Chen Mobai's eyes shimmered, his right hand spread its 5 fingers, and a ball of purple-blue flames burned fiercely in the void in his palm, about to unleash a terrifying sword light that shook the heavens and the earth. Lu Qiulong felt the power of the spirit beast within his body rapidly dwindling, and he was also shocked by Chen Mobai's terrifying strength, but the formula for victory was already in his grasp. Roar! After a deafening roar, his blood surged, and he became like a 3-meter-tall tiger, breaking free from all the fiery chains and lunging at Chen Mobai. At the same time, the purple fire sword light, activated by Chen Mobai's fire spirit body using the rising sun technique, extended from Chen Mobai's palm and pierced straight into the center of the gaping maw of the tiger that Lu Qiulong had transformed into. Who's winning? Outside, amidst the dazzling purple and blue flames and the mingling of powerful qi and blood, no one could clearly see the scene of the two fighting in the very center. Just as Hua Zijing, Ming Yihua, and the others clenched their fists in tension, their inspiration finally began to dissipate. Lu Qiulong grasped Chen Mobai's sword light with his left hand, diverting what should have been a fatal wound piercing the heart to his left shoulder blade. Although his left hand was crippled, he avoided being eliminated. At the same time, Lu Qiulong's right hand formed a claw and gripped Chen Mobai's neck, seemingly about to rip his head off. However, a clear ray of light transformed into an invisible barrier, like a halo, protecting Chen Mobai's neck and preventing his right hand from advancing any further. It was the heavenly wood spiritual light that Chen Mobai had cultivated diligently for nearly 2 years after he established his foundation. As the prototype of the Divine Wood sect's supreme technique, Heavenly Wood Divine Light, this Heavenly Wood Divine Light, although lacking in offensive power, can change its form under the spiritual light transformation technique that Chen Mobai obtained from the Longevity sect, making it his strongest defensive spell. Aren't you a foundation establishment cultivator from the Pure Yang scroll? Lu Qiulong looked at the heavenly wood spiritual light that had blocked his right hand's claw with some surprise. He could sense that it was formed from wood attribute spiritual power, which was just right to counter his earth attribute spiritual power. Your earth elemental power counters my fire attribute sword energy, making you the most suitable opponent to deal with me. As Chen Mobai spoke, He tried to pull his right sword finger out of the bloody hole in Lu Qiulong's shoulder, but the latter held it tightly, preventing him from moving. Unfortunately, your 100+ opponents were too weak and failed to force you to reveal your true strength. As Lu Qiulong sighed, the fingernails of his right hand, driven by his own spiritual power, transformed into 5 sharp blades, which slowly and firmly pierced into the heavenly wood spiritual light, about to touch Chen Mobai's neck. Shouldn't the True Spirit Academy be standing with the Kunpeng Dao Academy? Suddenly, Chen Mobai said something that made Lu Qiulong frown. What do you mean? Tai Shishu was recently defeated by Chunyang Academy. Lan Haitian is indignant that Xiaohu Waihuan and others are bullying the weak, so he has come to Chicheng Cave. I originally thought you should use your strength to fight against the people of Chunyang Academy. Chen Mobai's words startled Lu Qiulong, but he immediately shook his head. Although I am a graduate of the True Spirit Academy, I am first and foremost myself. Since I promised to defeat you, I must at least accomplish that. As soon as Lu Qiulong finished speaking, his eyes suddenly turned into tiger-like pupils. While his left hand firmly restrained Chen Mobai's sword finger, one of the 5 sharp blades in his right hand finally broke through the heavenly wood spiritual light and was about to cut open the latter's throat. What a pity, I wanted to let you admit defeat gracefully. Chen Mobai suddenly sighed, and just as Lu Qiulong was wondering what those words meant, the latter's head suddenly exploded, turning into a shower of blood. Faced with such a powerful opponent, Chen Mobai used the flower and fruit formed from his divine consciousness to evolve into the divine slash. If it were Lu Qiulong at his peak, he wouldn't have fallen for the trap so easily. However, after a fierce battle with Chen Mobai, and with Lu Qiulong forcibly absorbing the power of his own spirit beast to hold back, all for the sake of fighting Chen Mobai, his spirit had already been greatly depleted, ultimately leading to this result. Chen Mobai raised his right hand, his 5 fingers outstretched, sword energy surging, and he had already cut Lu Qiulong, who was restraining him, into several pieces. Amidst the swirling blood, he looked up at the last traces of his opponent and exclaimed in sincere admiration. A respectable opponent. End of this chapter. Chapter 282 Blue Ocean Sky's Strength. Chapter 282 Blue Ocean Sky's Strength. He actually won. In the group that helped mend the sky, Zhang Li saw Chen Mobai standing perfectly intact in the center of the screen, and her eyes widened in disbelief. It seems that this Lu Qiulong is also a person who is not worthy of his reputation. Zhang Li shook her head and said that, as one of the deputy leaders of the Sky Mending Group, in addition to dispensing medicine and doing medical logistics, she also helped to organize various information and intelligence in the mailroom. She had once seen a document from higher authorities that mentioned Lu Qiulong. It is said that the Heaven Mending Group is focusing on developing this person and plans to recruit him after Lan Haitian retires, as another Foundation establishment cultivators face-saving henchmen. In retrospect, it's nothing special. Is it possible that the chief disciple of the Dance Weapon Academy is too strong? King Nu said calmly, and Zhang Li was stunned for a moment. If that's the case, he's a bit too strong. Zhang Li glanced at the handsome young man in the red and black long robe in the middle of the screen and couldn't help but sigh. The Student Council, headquarters at Mount Chicheng. Ming Yihua and the others were already cheering, while Hua Zijing stood blankly in front of the screen, her face full of disbelief. She knew Chen Mobai was strong, but she didn't expect him to be this strong. That's Lu Qiulong. Known as the ferocious tiger of the immortal sect, he is a Foundation establishment expert renowned for his powerful combat abilities in the 36 heavens and 72 blessed lands. After reading the results of the battle, Meng Huinger breathed a sigh of relief. She put away her phone, ended her break, and returned to the studio to continue rehearsing with the Yu Huang opera troupe. Why did it take you so long? Zhang Yuyuan, who was already covered in sweat from training, saw that Meng Huinger seemed a little happy and asked curiously. I watched a good show. A good show? What genre is it? When Zhang Yuyuan asked her question, Meng Huinger rolled her eyes at him. This guy only cared about these things. He was a born drama fanatic. However, it was precisely because of this that he was able to get ahead of others and complete the foundation establishment early on, and was regarded as the most likely candidate to master the divine song. As for himself, he had been unable to establish his foundation for the past 2 years, which was about to lower the average level of the Dance Weapon Academy. The people around him who used to flatter him were now looking at him with increasingly strange eyes. If only I could be as outstanding as him. Thinking about this, Meng Huinger recalled Chen Mobai's heroic figure as he casually killed Lu Qiulong, and she couldn't help but feel lost in thought. In a certain part of the plaza of Chicheng Cave, Lan Haitian saw the scene on the big screen where Chen Mobai cut Lu Qiulong into several pieces, and his face showed surprise. This guy seems to be even stronger than before. Lin Yin was naturally by Lan Haitian's side. She leaned against the wall and stood in the shadows, witnessing the entire battle between Chen Mobai and Lu Qiulong. Having personally witnessed their strength, she originally thought Lu Qiulong had a better chance of winning, because she had met Lu Qiulong when she was on a mission with Lan Haitian. The two fought once. Lan Haitian's victory against Lu Qiulong, who had merged with a second-tier peak companion beast in spirit, was hard-won. That's why she felt that Chen Mobai was slightly inferior. To everyone's surprise, they actually won. If he had prepared in advance, he could have absorbed at most 20% of the ferocious tiger's malevolent energy, so it would have been normal for him to lose. Lan Haitian, however, immediately saw the reason behind it. "Oh, so you thought Lu Qiulong would lose before the fight even started?" Lin Yin found it a bit strange. "No, I share the same view as you." Lan Haitian hesitated for a moment, then told the truth. Chen Mobai's victory was unexpected by everyone. This naturally includes the Chunyang Academy, which personally orchestrated the battle. Even Lu Qiulong has been defeated. Below the late foundation establishment stage, who else can defeat him? Xiaohu Weihuan frowned and looked at Wenren Ziju, the top student of this year's Chunyang Academy, who had already reached the 6th level of foundation establishment thanks to the Academy's generous resources. Even against a late-stage foundation establishment opponent, relying on the pure Yang scroll and the Yuan Yang sword technique, they are not without a fighting chance. But if he were to fight Lu Qiulong, he would surely die. Senior, although I am no match for him, it concerns the ancestors' record. Even if it means dying once, I must fight this battle. Wenren Ziju said these words with a firm expression, and was about to project himself into the little crimson heaven without hesitation. If all else fails, let's use the method we discussed before. Just then Sima Xingyu stopped him, opened his eyes and said, "You're making too much of a sacrifice. I won't agree unless it's absolutely necessary." Xiaohu Weihuan shook his head, rejecting Sima Xingyu's proposal. Wait until he wins his 119th battle. But seeing Chen Mobai on the screen, who seemed like a sword god, defeating 3 powerful opponents once again, Xiaohu Weihuan wavered, sighed, and nodded in agreement. "Then I'll go and prepare for the final battle first, and I'll also help you get some of Chen Mobai's skills." Wenren Ziju spoke up, and the other two nodded in agreement. "Sai, I'm feeling frustrated. I'll go to Little Red Heaven to vent my frustrations." When Xiaohu Weihuan saw Wenren Ziju's face filled with a look of resignation to death, the pent-up frustration that had been building up in his heart for 2 or 3 days because of Chen Mobai's winning streak could no longer be suppressed. He also projected himself into Little Crimson Heaven, wanting to match up with 2 opponents and engage in a bloody slaughter. Sima Xingyu did not stop him. In order to better break through the realm and maintain the purity and strength of the spells, the cultivators of the pure Yang scroll would basically follow the example of the Yuan Yang ancestor and remain celibate for life. In this case, there will be an excess of Yang energy in the body. If one's mental state is not high, one will often experience such intense emotional fluctuations. Xiaohu Weihuan's ability to suppress his emotions for 2 or 3 days already demonstrates a high level of spiritual awareness. However, these two most outstanding chief students of Chenyang Academy in the past 100 years were unaware that a shark lurking in the ocean was waiting for them to enter. Zaihu Weihuan has appeared. On the plaza, Lin Yin saw the image in the upper right corner of the large screen and couldn't help but feel excited. Luckily, we won't have to wait long. Lan Haitian saw Zaihu Weihuan behead his opponent with a single sword strike on the screen, and a relaxed and contented smile appeared on his lips. Then he split his consciousness in two and projected it into the lesser crimson heaven. It's all garbage. Zaihu Weihuan was matched with a Foundation Establishment Level 6 opponent, which seemed to give him a good chance of winning. However, when it came to a real fight, he still couldn't withstand a single sword strike from him. If only I could be matched with that junior from the Dance Weapon Academy. Feeling even more frustrated, Zaihu Weihuan killed his opponent and then clicked the match button again. Today, he decided to kill 30. Then, his third opponent of the day appeared before him. The first thing that appears is a blue and white robe, embroidered with a strange design featuring a dragon's head, a fish's body and wings. The flying fish is a python, and it also has two horns. It is a Kunpeng flying fish robe. Could it be that it has been assigned to Taishi Shu again? The opponent's projected avatar was gradually solidifying, and Zaihu Weihuan smiled. Compared to the weak, he preferred to kill the strong head-on. Although Taishi Shu is only at the 7th level of Foundation Establishment, as the chief of Kunpeng Dao Academy, her strength is so great that among the Foundation Establishment cultivators who graduated from Chenyang Academy, only he and Xing Yu can say they can definitely win. Perfect, another defeat should vent most of my anger. With these thoughts in mind, Zaihu Weihuan stood with his hands behind his back, waiting arrogantly for Taishi Shu to appear. But he immediately sensed something was wrong. Generally, only those who are entering the lesser crimson heaven for the first time through projection will be this slow. Could it be that it wasn't Taishi Shu, but another Foundation Establishment cultivator from Kunpeng Dao Academy? Could it be that he can't accept defeat and called for backup? After the thought flashed through his mind, Zaihu Weihuan frowned slightly, but he was extremely confident in himself. He was not afraid of any of the top graduates from Kunpeng Academy, except for Lan Haitian. However, what you fear most is what happens. Once the opponent's projection was fully focused, Zaihu Weihuan, and even the entire audience of the immortal sect who were watching him, all widened their eyes. What's going on? Why is this guy here? Is Kunpeng Academy such a sore loser? I've heard of your name too. People say that after me, you are the most likely genius to be invincible at the Foundation Establishment level. Lan Haitian smiled gently and spoke to Zaihu Weihuan. You have been invincible for 60 years and are about to form your core. If you lose to me, your Dao heart may be flawed. Is it worth it? Zaihu Weihuan was, after all, the most outstanding graduate of Chenyang Academy in the past 100 years. Although he was only 50 years old, he was still trying to weaken his opponent's fighting spirit in the face of Lan Haitian, who was regarded as an invincible legend in the Foundation Establishment realm. As long as we don't lose, that's fine. Lan Haitian said it casually, then raised his right hand. Clang! Upon seeing this, Zaihu Weihuan dared not be negligent and immediately unleashed his most prized Yuan Yang sword light. The purple fire sword light flashed past, and after it canceled out the opponent's Yuan Yang sword energy, Chen Mobai's eyes gleamed. With the activation of the divine slash, Wenren Ziju, who was already exhausted, could no longer hold on. His head exploded and he collapsed to the ground, disappearing from the scene. 119 wins. Chen Mobai glanced at his record. He was just one win away from surpassing Yuan Yang ancestor and holding the record for the longest winning streak in Little Red Heaven. To break something with one's own hands. This feeling is indescribably wonderful. Just as Chen Mobai decided to press on and try matching again, he suddenly paused for a moment. His real self in the outside world saw the push notification sent to his phone. A Clash of Titans. The Invincible Foundation Establishment Legend versus the #1 foundation establishment expert of Chunyang Academy. Shocking, Lan Haitian and Taishi Shu have this kind of relationship. In a fit of rage for a woman, why did Lan Haitian risk bullying the weak to stand up for Taishi Shu? Please click the link below. Xiaohu Weihuan only needs this one battle to ascend to the foundation establishment throne and become the second primordial Yang ancestor. If Chen Mo hadn't known the background of Lan Haitian's visit to Chicheng Cave, he would have almost believed it just by looking at these eye-catching headlines. However, this battle is undoubtedly very important. So he decided to wait. After Lan Haitian defeated Xiaohu Weihuan, he pressed his advantage and broke Yuanyang Patriarch's winning streak, dealing a double blow to Chunyang Academy. So he quit Xiao Chishan and started watching the live stream. Sima Xingyu, who had crippled his foundation establishment level 8 cultivation and dropped his realm to foundation establishment level 6, had been waiting for Chen Mobai to match him with someone again, but his face turned red with frustration. He waited and waited, but nothing came. What's going on? Could someone else have gotten in the queue? Sima Xingyu asked anxiously, while the technical director of Chunyang Academy immediately contacted the operators of Xia Chishan to confirm that there were no problems with the back-end lines, ensuring that as long as Chen Mobai clicked match, his next opponent would be him. It seems he's retired. Immediately, the operators of Xia Chishan sent a message. Upon seeing it, Sima Xingyu could no longer suppress his injuries and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Something terrible has happened, Senior. Just then, another piece of bad news arrived. What's wrong? Sima Xingyu circulated the pure Yang scroll to calm his spiritual energy before patiently asking the question. Senior Xiaohu has been matched with Lan Haitian. With a loud bang, Sima Xingyu suddenly stood up, knocking over the table in front of him. He immediately changed the channel to Xiaohu Weihuan's channel. As soon as I turned around, I saw my revered senior being beaten. The Yuan Yang sword technique is indeed extraordinary. Within the lesser crimson sky, Lan Haitian used his hands to suppress and tear apart the overwhelming sword light unleashed by Xiaohu Weihuan. Then, he moved in a phantom-like manner, suddenly appearing in front of the latter. With a heavy punch, Xiaohu Weihuan managed to block it in time by using his sword finger technique, but he also heard the sound of the bones in his right hand breaking. It's like a massive iron weight crashing down. Even if your sword light could cleave a mountain at this moment, all that's left is for the sword to break. There's still a chance. However, Xiaohu Weihuan was also a peak foundation establishment expert. The combination of the pure Yang scroll and the Yuan Yang sword technique allowed him to break free from the confinement of the blue sea heavenly magnetic force in an instant. His eyes began to burn with blood, like two scarlet blood suns, and his entire body was ablaze with energy. His already incredibly powerful aura broke through the foundation establishment stage in an instant, reaching a terrifying level. Burning Blood Kayang Sword. This was Xiaohu Weihuan's desperate move. This move required burning half of his life essence. If it weren't for the fact that Xiao Chishan could exempt him from the cost, he would definitely have preferred to admit defeat rather than use this move. But at this moment, it became his only chance to break the deadlock. Sensing a powerful spiritual energy more than 3 times stronger than his prime, Xiaohu Weihuan stretched out his hands, which were burning with blood and flesh, revealing his pale white bones. He held a blood-red light sword and slashed down heavily at Lan Haitian, who was chasing after him. The moment the sword was unleashed, the void trembled and space distorted. Even a core formation cultivator couldn't achieve anything more than this. I might win. The moment Xiaohu Weihuan had this thought, he saw Lan Haitian extend his fair and slender right hand and gently grasp the blood-red sword light he had unleashed. Then Lan Haitian clenched his right fist tightly. Clicking. The blood-red sword light shattered into pieces. Is that all? Lan Haitian's sigh reached Xiaohu Weihuan's ears, and then he swept past him, shattering half of the latter's body into blood and bone fragments with a wave of his right hand. Is this guy really only at the foundation establishment stage? When Chen Mobai saw Lan Haitian's clean and decisive victory over Xiaohu Waihuan, his eyes widened in astonishment. He had never met a foundation establishment expert in the heavenly river realm, but he imagined that even those who grew up in bloody battles might not be as good as Lan Haitian. End of this chapter.